online.
Oh, these are attendees. Barbara Fair, no surprise there. We see a bunch of people. It's really cool. Barbara always comes. We like when she comes.
Ready?
Yeah. Go ahead, you're all set.
Let's get Devon's attention first. Hi, folks. Oops. We'll just get started. I appreciate everyone being here, and apologies for the delay. We would have liked to have a quorum to start. We don't yet. There's 4 members, 2 here in person, and thank you. I guess I knew my name. Yes, I'm Tig Dooley, co-chair of the committee. Mel Medina is here to my right. We have Ben Howell and Daryl McGraw online. We're expecting at least one other committee member to join us, but I think we can get started in the meantime, particularly as the main event tonight doesn't require any votes of the committee, and so I'll just get right into that. This is the semi-annual public hearing, which is convened to hear a presentation of the Ombud's findings in the last essentially 6 months. There is a report that has been posted on the advisory committee's website, and I believe the Ombud's website summarizing findings, recommendations, et cetera. And of course, we have our Ombuds, Devon Ward, here to comment on those, summarize, and then we'll hear comments from the public. We have, I think, 29 speakers signed up, and we've received written testimony from at least a couple dozen more. We appreciate all of those who submitted comments, all those who have come here today or tuning in online to share perspectives with us. So I think you don't need to hear too much from me, so I'll just first turn things over to Attorney Ward to discuss his most recent report. Then if we, members of the committee, have questions or comments, we'll take care of those and then open up the floor to speakers. We have already a sort of randomized order, so we'll just call folks out when that time comes.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair, members of the Correction Advisory Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present the semi-annual report of the Office of the Correction Ombuds covering December 1st, 2025 through June 3rd of 2026. Before I begin, I want to recognize the members of my team who are here today: Amy Zifst, our Healthcare Ombuds; Tiana Milner, our Office Administrator; Teresa Bayetes, our Clerk Typist; and I also want to acknowledge Abraham Santiago, our Associate Ombuds, who couldn't be with us today because he's attending to a family emergency. The work reflected in this report is not mine alone. It is the product of a small but deeply dedicated team that comes to work every day, determined to listen, investigate, and make this system more accountable. This report tells the story of an office still young, but increasingly clear in its purpose. In less than 2 years, we've grown from a 1-person office into a 6-person team and secured the resources to expand the team to 10 by the end of this year. We've increased our investigative capacity, strengthened public access, and become a consistent presence throughout Connecticut's correctional system. Since we began cataloging complaints in October of 2025, the office has received 1,974 complaints. By June 3rd, we had closed or resolved 1,414 matters, while 560 matters remained under review or investigation. But those numbers represent more than data. Behind every complaint is a person seeking to be heard, a mother asking whether her son is receiving necessary medical care, a family trying to understand a decision affecting someone they love, an incarcerated person asking whether the conditions in which they live are safe, lawful, and humane. Health services remain our largest complaint category, representing nearly 1/3 of all matters received. Our investigation into outpatient specialty care demonstrated what effective oversight can accomplish. We documented 2,417 pending requests involving more than 1,600 patients. The Department of Correction and the Office of Policy and Management responded with a corrective plan, increased appointment scheduling, and continued updates to our office. That progress did not happen because of any one person or any one institution had all the answers. It happened because incarcerated people spoke, families refused to remain silent, advocates organized, legislators listened, state leaders engaged, and our office worked to turn individual complaints into broader opportunities for accountability and reform. I also want to acknowledge Commissioner Carlos, Commissioner Quiros, Chief of Staff Cotta, the wardens across the Department of Correction, and the frontline staff members who engage with our office every day. Independent oversight will produce disagreement. That's part of the work. But disagreement should not prevent engagement, and independence should not prevent partnership. Their willingness to facilitate access, respond to concerns, assist with facility visits, and help implement new systems has made much of our progress easier and in some instances possible. I also recognize that frontline employees perform extraordinarily difficult work under demanding conditions. Our responsibility to provide independent oversight does not prevent us from recognizing their service, professionalism, and willingness to work constructively with our office. Independence and partnership are not opposites. At their best, they are how accountability produces progress. And it is in that same spirit that I want to speak about the future of this committee. The Correction Advisory Committee was not created merely to receive reports after the work has already been completed. Its greater purpose is to serve as a thought partner to the office, to help us ask questions, identify emerging concerns, challenge assumptions, and chart a thoughtful course forward. The members of this committee possess experience, expertise, community relationships, and perspective that no ombuds and no single office can possess alone. That collective wisdom should be one of the greatest strengths of Connecticut's correctional oversight framework. Yet throughout much of the foundational work of building this office, many consequential decisions have been made by me and my staff largely on our own. We have not yet developed the regular consultation that would allow the committee's collective knowledge to fully inform and strengthen our work. And I don't offer that as a rebuke. I offer it as an invitation. The annual conditions of confinement hearing demonstrates why that partnership matters. It is arguably this committee's most consequential public proceeding, a rare opportunity to hear directly from incarcerated people, families, advocates, and members of the public. Several committee members did not attend this year's hearing. When members are absent, the committee loses the opportunity to hear those voices firsthand, ask questions, identify patterns, and allow that testimony to shape its advice to the office. There are also reasons to reflect on the notice provided for today's semi-annual meeting. Meaningful participation requires meaningful notice. Members need time to prepare, family and advocates need time to organize. The public deserves a genuine opportunity to participate. Those are not insurmountable problems. They are opportunities for us to become more deliberate, more organized, more faithful to the purpose for which this committee was created. Because the question is not whether this committee has value, the question is whether we will organize ourselves to realize its full value. Will the committee simply hear what has already occurred, or will it help shape what comes next? I believe it can. More than 10,000 people are incarcerated in Connecticut. Their lives do not pause between our meetings. Their medical needs do not wait for a convenient calendar date. Their families do not stop worrying. Questions of safety, dignity, accountability, and rehabilitation do not become less urgent because the work is difficult. So my hope is that today marks the presentation of another report, today my hope is that today marks more than the presentation of another report. My hope is that it marks the beginning of a deeper partnership, one grounded in preparation, participation, candor, and shared purpose. The institution that we are building will not be judged solely by the reports we publish, the meetings we hold, or the complaints we close. It'll be judged by whether people are safer because we acted, whether government became more accountable because we asked difficult questions, whether families felt less powerless because someone listened, and whether Connecticut moved closer to a correctional system grounded not only in security, but in dignity, in fairness, transparency, and humanity. That is the work before us. It is difficult work, it is unfinished work, but it is worthy work. And I remain hopeful that together we can build an oversight system equal to the responsibility we have been given and worthy of the people who we've been called to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just note we do now have quorum with Andrew Gearing joining us. Nevertheless, we do have several absent members today and have remarked upon that in the past. There's currently 3 vacancies on the committee, which have remained unfilled for months, or in one case, over a year. We don't possess the power to fill those vacancies. We don't possess the power to remove members. And I do have a concern that if members resign from the board, from the advisory committee, history shows they won't be replaced. And so I'm grateful that we do at least now have a quorum to conduct business. But again, the primary business today is to discuss this latest report and to hear from any members of the public who wish to discuss that. So with that, I'll ask first. I see we have, as I mentioned, Mel Medina, Daryl McGraw, Ben Powell, and Andrew Gearing. If any members of the committee have any questions or comments on the semi-annual report. I see Ben, go ahead.
Thanks, Tig. Ombuds Ward, I appreciate sort of hearing the feedback. I hear you loud and clear. Obviously, the people who are present are people who've been present in the committee, and there are issues with people being present consistently, but we hear you loud and clear, and hopefully we can strive to be better in that respect going forward. I'm sorry I can't be up in Hartford today. I'm obviously stuck in New Haven. I did want to sort of outline a couple of things in the report and just sort of give you accolades. Number one, as you sort of highlighted the report as a physician, I really did appreciate the report that you published on the delays in scheduling outpatient care. Clearly, the DOC and the state took that seriously. There was a real sort of response in response to the report that you guys put out. I'm hopeful that that continues to be the case, that the DOC Health Services take that seriously and continue to sort of be proactive in setting up new systems. I just want to make sure that you and your office are continuing to sort of monitor that, because it sounded, my understanding is that they were using pulling resources from other areas to kind of fill up a gap, and not necessarily clear that they were actually creating a new system that would make sure that those gaps don't persist in the future. So hopefully your team is continuing on the top of that. The second report that I think you guys published recently that I really want to highlight, which was great, was the heat mitigation report. Obviously, it's been a very hot summer. There was some reporting about at least two of the facilities in the state not having adequate air conditioning, especially when we've had some of these extremely high temperatures. So I'm glad you guys are putting visibility on that issue, and hopefully the DOC and the state are taking that seriously to making sure that in heat and sort of cold, that our facilities aren't sort of unsafe places for people to reside. There are two sort of issues that in the sort of spirit of collaboration and starting to forward thinking and thinking issues to move forward with, that I want to highlight for your office to potentially consider with now your expanded staff. We've had some communication about this, but I just want to make sure that it's on your radar, that part of your purview is overseeing the conditions in our halfway houses. Those are often people are on parole, and by anecdote, sort of my patients or patients of my colleagues, I've heard that sort of conditions in halfway houses are not great or consistently great. I really think that they are a kind of a black box in our correctional system, and there's really not a lot of understanding or visibility or transparency about how conditions in halfway houses sort of exist in the real world. If you have the bandwidth, I would hope that that'd be something that you guys could consider looking into in the near future. The other issue that I think there might be an opportunity for the Ombuds Office, and potentially in collaboration with the committee, is the issue of medical parole and compassionate release. Our group here at the SAFE Center has started to look at this, and Connecticut really does not do a great job in offering medical parole and compassionate release. There was a group called FAM, or Families Against Mandatory Minimums, that gave our state an F based on the statute for medical parole and compassionate release, where some of our neighboring states get A grades with respect to the statute that is available. And then for reporting from the Board of Pardons Paroles, we really only have like 1 to 2 people per year who are being given sort of release under that statute. And I have to imagine there are more than that number of people who could potentially benefit from being released early, sort of who have sort of advanced disease or sort of limited independence in their sort of activities of daily living, or people who potentially are permanently residing in infirmaries in our sort of correctional facilities, who really would be better served being in the community and are no longer a risk to society, however defined. And that's something I just don't think there's a lot of visibility on that, and I would hope that potentially that's something that your office could look into. Those are my my only two comments, and number one, I just do want to also finally say that I really appreciate the growth in the office. I think it's really showing the productivity that's possible given now that you're more staffed up, and I look forward to, as that staffing grows, that be able to be even more productive and frankly responsive to all the concerns that are being risen in real time. But that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
May I? Thank you for that, Ben, and really appreciate all the collaboration, that you've provided the office in its growth. Ben sat on a number of our hiring panels, and I know he's met regularly with Amy, our healthcare ombuds. But I did want to just speak to a couple of issues you raised with respect to the halfway houses. We've started touring them. They are broken up into region, so we've already toured all of the halfway houses in Hartford. We plan to tour, actually we're touring tomorrow, all the halfway houses in Waterbury, and then after that we'll be doing New Haven, Bridgeport, and Norwich. So we should circle through at least the first round of halfway houses, at least the first view of all the halfway houses, probably before the end of August. So that is something that is underway. After also we've heard a lot of complaints about the conditions in the halfway houses, and we are heeding that. With respect to the OCO report, the outpatient specialty report, we are still reviewing data from the DOC related to how they're dwindling through the list, every day making new discoveries about that data and whether or not DOC is making progress. We've received 2 reports so far from DOC with the raw data in terms of their numbers and moving through that list. And as of today, it's unclear on what progress, if any, they've made. So we likely will be issuing a public update on that within the next few weeks. And then on the issue of medical parole and compassionate release, I think that's certainly an issue that's ripe for consideration. With next Tuesday, we'll be releasing the office's first death investigation. It involves an elderly woman who was housed at York. And her situation and another situation is a quadriplegic gentleman who's located in Corrigan right now, who's taken up a good amount of bandwidth in our office and also has the eyes and ears of state's attorney and some other folks who comes to mind, and certainly thinking about how we can better structure our compassionate and medical release. So that's something I would love to work with the committee on as we head into the full legislative session in January to maybe make some statutory changes. So we can try to provide some relief on that front. So thank you for those comments.
Awesome. Thank you.
Daryl, go ahead.
Thanks, Ty. So Attorney Ward, I want to thank you for your report. Also, thank you and your team for the great work that you're doing. I'm glad that Ben brought up the fact about the halfway houses. I think that should, and I'm sure I know all the things that are on your list, but I want us to make sure that we do keep that on our radar, because individuals, I get, like, you talk about collaboration. I get calls every day from people, whether they're in halfway houses, family members, or what have you, and for the most part, we direct those calls to you and your team when we can, especially if it's something that should be on your radar. And one of the things that I want to make sure that we put on record is that individuals that are leaving the correctional facilities, especially people, Muslim brothers and sisters who go to halfway houses, are not receiving the same diet that they received when they were incarcerated. Meaning that if they were on common fare, many of the people that, there are a lot of people that go to halfway houses that don't eat pork. And when dinner is served, and this is a point that I'm glad that we can make here in this forum, so as everyone knows that what the reports are is that they leave the facilities and they were given whatever for common fare, whatever supplement in place of pork. When they get to the halfway house, there's a change. There's the same standards don't apply to them, meaning that if there's a meal that has pork in it, they are given peanut butter and jelly or told to figure it out on their own. I would like your committee to really look into that and look into what is given to individuals who do not eat pork or that are coming from correctional facilities on special diets that the halfway houses should be, because according to the halfway house standard, they're still under DOC custody, so they should be treated accordingly and they should be fed accordingly, so on and so forth. I will, just wanted to put that on your radar, and also the collaboration. I like the invite. I think that, we've known each other for a long time, and I don't remember getting a lot of requests for assistance and or from the committee, and that could just be on me. It could be in my email box, could have dropped through, but I'm always available, always willing to assist in any way, your team in any way that I can, whether that be tours, visits, stuffing envelopes, whatever it is. This committee is here to help you. I'll join this committee so that we can change things for brothers and sisters that are on the inside. So you have my full commitment, and I'm sure of the team members as well. So I felt bad when I heard you say almost that you felt like if it sounded like you didn't feel like you had our full support in every avenue. That's all I got right now.
Yeah, Daryl, you've been around for every meeting, including the conditions of confinement meeting, so I don't think those comments were necessarily directed at you. And so I just want to say on the record, I appreciate all your support and all your help in getting the office stood up, sincerely. On the issue of diets in the halfway houses, part of one of the legislative things that were accomplished this year is the auditors of public accounts are doing a complete audit of the food services inside DOC. That audit is already underway. I am not sure if it includes our halfway houses, and the reason why it may not is a lot of folks may not be aware, but our halfway houses in Connecticut are not owned by the state of Connecticut. It's a service that is provided through a network of contractors that contract with the state to provide these houses. It's maybe about a half a dozen contractors that make up our 32 or so halfway houses. From my understanding from the tours we've done thus far, they're required, they provide a continental breakfast where the residents make their own breakfast, and then they bring in lunch, and then they bring in dinner. The residents often cook their own meals, but your concern regarding halal meals and things that are respective to the Muslim diet are certainly heard, and something we'll look into as we continue to tour throughout the summer. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. And again, just thank you for your collaboration and your participation being present here over these past 2 years.
Thank you, and I also appreciate the working on the issues with our brother that is the person that is the paraplegic in the system as well, because we've talked about that. That's been something, so I'm glad that is at my radar as well. So appreciate that.
Yep.
Mel?
Thank you, Attorney Ward, for this report, and to the members of the public for coming out, and looking forward to hearing from members of the public as well after. I guess a few questions. The first is if you could help us understand, we have 2 data reports here, obviously total complaints by primary category, and then total complaints by case distribution. And I'm wondering, for the purposes of, to the extent there are any trends, are any of the categories of complaints specifically concerning, and because they show a trend in one particular facility, I guess?
Yeah, it's not in the report, but we have the ability in CTMS, which is our case management software, to narrow down to complaints by facility in terms of which complaint category is most prevalent in individual facilities. Obviously, as I said, that's not in the report. I will just say that the 3 biggest complaint facilities are McDougall, Cheshire, and Osborne. And the number 1 complaint category across those 3 facilities is health services. I would say followed probably by staff interactions or incidents with staff are probably the second largest category in those 3 facilities. But health services remains a challenge. It's one of the biggest, the biggest category of complaint, and those 3 facilities I think represent 3 of the largest facilities we have. I think each one of them holds roughly 1,200 people or so. In terms of trends, that's at least what we're picking up. But I could certainly get the committee a more granular breakdown by facility if they'd like.
Okay. And then on those complaints that would involve a member of the corrections staff or health staff, is there a way to identify, how do I want to say this? Do you have the capacity to track complaints of individual people? And are you noticing any trends in that?
Yes, we do. And so our case management software allows us not only to put in the complainant, but who is the subject of the complaint.
Got it.
And so we actually are starting to see trends where we can type in a DOC staff employee's name and see all of the complaints that somebody has logged against them, and it allows us to observe trends. We've been working on a report involving a particular staff member for a little bit over a year now, compiling complaints, and so I think sometime this year we'll kind of show publicly the capability of what that looks like. But yes, we are able to track complaints by staff members in our case management system.
Thank you. And then I guess my last question is on the one issue that seems at the moment unsolvable, and that's conditions at Osborne as it relates to air conditioning and DOC's temporary solution of portable air conditioners and no plan for a long-term facility-wide air conditioning unit. And I guess, the struggle with the question is like, one, this is something that, as I understand, DOC has millions of dollars at the table in bond dollars that it has access to for projects that it has had in the past and currently on the books. Would this require DOC to submit a new bond request, or is it that from DOC's position they don't think that those additions to the facilities, the costs outweigh the benefit? I'm trying to understand what their holdup is, if any. And I say that to say, like, the challenge of, do you invest more in a facility that cages people?
Right. So when I did my report back in October of last year, the response was that they were not moving forward with the long-term upgrades at Osborne, that the portable air conditionings or air conditioning units that they were bringing in each summer was the plan. As many may know, there's a multi-million-dollar window project going on at Osborne. My understanding is the position of the department and the administration is that window project combined with the portable AC units should improve the conditions at Osborne greatly. We toured the facility during the last heat wave in July, and the temperatures were varied. There were some units where it was comfortable, where you had temperatures in the 70s, but there were still some units that in cells that were reading as high as 85, 86 degrees. And so it varies throughout the facility. I'll continue to say this. You're going to hear me say this, throughout the next year. But I am of the mind that Osborne is a facility that is beyond its useful life. That it should be. And I've said this to the commissioner, that I am pressing upon her to try to develop a plan to significantly reduce the number of people who are housed there, or ultimately close Osborne altogether. I understand that's not a thing that can be accomplished quickly. It certainly needs to be done looking at the facility footprint of corrections throughout the state. But it's something I'm going to continue saying, that I believe Osborne is a facility that's past its useful life and really should be considered whether it's safe and humane to continue housing people there.
Got it, thank you. And then lastly, it's a small section, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to inform us about the challenges on the FOIA requests as it relates to DOC legal costs, the response by the Attorney General's office, and the kind of outcomes there. And I think if you could, to provide contextually why this matters.
Yeah, thank you for that. So there were a couple of different issues related to the DOC legal cost. Earlier this year, or actually last year, we put in a request, a FOIA request. This is before the office had subpoena power, to try to understand what the scope of legal costs were related to the Department of Corrections, specifically related to medical malfeasance and use of force. Having been a civil rights litigator who's done this work, I understand that the settlement numbers that we see, the $5,000, $10,000 settlements we see, are not the full scope of the cost of litigation. Behind each one of those settlements, there's deposition cost, expert witnesses, travel, court filing fees, et cetera, that also go into those costs. And so the project that I endeavored on is to try to fully understand the cost of some of this litigation. As a result, I sent a FOIA request to the Attorney General's office. They provided some initial records, and in that first tranche of records they submitted, I noticed that several of my settlements that I had obtained while I was in practice were missing. Some of them were fairly large, some of them were in the millions of dollars, and so it begged the question: if you all missed several settlements that were millions of dollars, what other settlements did you miss? They went back and reviewed their records, came up with another second set of settlements, but did not produce litigation costs, did not produce other records. Once the office obtained subpoena power in January, we also subpoenaed the Department of Corrections for their litigation-related expenses, compared that against what the Attorney General's office had submitted to us, and realized that the Attorney General's office had not been thorough in their search for records. And then brought that to the attention of the Freedom of Information Commission, who found that the Attorney General's office violated the Freedom of Information laws in the state in terms of their production of documents to us. They just provided us their final batch in response to that in, I believe, maybe a week or two ago. And so through the assistance of our partnership with UConn Law, we've had students cataloging those expenses and those settlements. We still have to put in the most recent batch, but last at count, we were somewhere around 10 million, and that's between 2019 and 2024 in litigation cost. We hope to release those findings before the end of the year in terms of the litigation costs, just for, again, that period 2019 to 2024. But from a policy, I think this is the other question you asked. I think from a policy standpoint, why this is important, not just in terms of raw cost, thinking about maybe what we could have done with $10 million, but what I found in looking at this data is you'll start to see employees that are frequent flyers, people that have multiple settlements involving them. And as part of this effort, I've also looked into these employees' disciplinary records, and what you'll often find is, even though the state paid out $5,000, $10,000, sometimes even $30,000 for a particular employee's conduct, there's no record of discipline in their disciplinary or employee file. And so if you're thinking about this as a corporation would, right, if you have an employee who's causing the corporation to lose tens of thousands of dollars based on their conduct, at some point the corporation is going to notify the employee and say, hey, whatever you are doing, please stop doing, because you're costing us all of this money. But for the state of Connecticut, that doesn't occur. Many times these people don't even know that the settlements have happened. They're not aware that the conduct that they engaged in cost the state to engage in these expenses. And so it's kind of that mind frame that I'm approaching this project, is really trying to close that loop and figure out how we can do a better job of when these settlements happen, to make the employees on the front lines aware that their conduct is ultimately causing the state of Connecticut to lose a significant amount of dollars.
Thank you for that. I highlight it because it to me, it represents some of what can be so unique and powerful about the role that you have in your office's role, and obviously your team's role. You effectively are opening up a black box that no one's been able to see inside of, as it relates to settlements and complaints, and costs, legal costs that hide under the balance sheet at DOC. And as a result, as you've framed, mean that management may not be leveraging, nor chooses to leverage, important data that tells them some of their employees are actually costing the state a lot of money. And so that work would not have been done if you weren't in this office, and it's painstaking work, and you are also taking on other state agencies. It's awkward. And so I just want to commend you and your office and the team that you have on that work. And I think that to me is a great example of where this work can continue to go. And I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mel. Yeah, I would echo that as well. I think you've heard me say probably numerous times by now that I think if the Attorney General's office charged DOC hourly for its attorneys' times, we'd really see what the cost of this kind of misconduct is, and it goes beyond even what you've just stated. Then there are states that do that, I believe. So I hope you will continue to pull on that thread. And on a related point, the notion that you're able to identify through this, bad apples or what you might call them, and Mel's question earlier about how granular you can get with the complaints, which I believe you said you can find, you can notice patterns if there's particular employees. Does DOC internally have that same capability? I assume they would be able to identify repeat grievances or complaints against particular officers.
I believe they do. I'm not sure what their case management system is for the security division, which investigates, is kind of their internal affairs division. I'm not sure what they use to track complaints. I've seen some of their spreadsheets, so I do know that they do, especially in coordination with OPM's labor relations, they do keep kind of a catalog of employee discipline, even down to bargaining units. So they have that ability, certainly. I'm still trying to wrap my head around kind of how disciplinary decisions are made. It is a bit of a maze whether or not the decisions ultimately lie with the agency or lie with Office of Policy and Management in the Labor Relations Division over there. So that's something I hope to report on more and get a better understanding of. But to answer your question, I believe DOC does have that ability.
Well, it strikes me that, I assume they do, but there's the potential, let's say, that they don't take all complaints or grievances seriously, and so wouldn't necessarily be alarmed by a large number that involve a particular officer. But your office can look a little deeper and kind of identify complaints that are serious enough to bring to DOC's attention. And I wonder if there's an opportunity for some kind of line of communication on that, because obviously we have, in the annual report, I think you're appropriately focusing on high level and systemic issues. But in the course of, a year's work, if you're coming across, a particular recurrent problem, whether it's an officer who's generated a lot of complaints, or a particular unit or anything like that, would you feel at this point that you have the ability to bring that directly to DOC's attention? And I ask because it would probably be helpful to DOC, but also I think it's helpful to have that notice on the record, if you understand.
Understood. Yeah, I will say we do, and we have. We do have that ability. We do communicate with DOC leadership regarding complaints we have about individual staff, not just custody staff, but medical staff. And so, as I mentioned before, we have been tracking complaints related to particular staff members for almost a year now, and we hope to release some of those findings publicly sometime later this year to maybe show the public, to your point, in terms of public notice, kind of the capability of the office and in terms of what we can do in that regard. DOC's, at least the response from my understanding is, 100 incarcerated individuals can make a complaint about a staff member. It does not have much weight with the department. That is their view, that they do not kind of weight complaints from individuals housed in DOC the same way they weight complaints from staff. And I think that's unfortunate, and I'm hoping that some of the public reporting that we do changes that viewpoint.
Yes, absolutely. I have one other just more general question, maybe in two parts. Obviously, we're primarily discussing the most recent semi-annual report tonight, but you referred to the annual report on conditions of confinement. I know DOC had a response to that, issued a response to that report. I wondered if there was if you had any reaction to that response, and just general observations about whether anything, if you've noticed anything improve since that report was, your report was released, or if there's particular lingering problems that you feel like really need additional attention.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think, the picture that's been circulated the most with the rusty shower in Cheshire, those have been repaired and reinforced with brand new steel. So happy to report on that. At least from what I hear from the folks who are housed in DOC, they've told me that the food portions have at least increased. On our tours, it appears that the food quality is getting better at some facilities. At some times, I can't say that across the board. We still have some concerns about food services in DOC as well. But I think in terms of the response, I was it was a mixed bag, and I was a little concerned with Commissioner Kuros's response to the first report. I think he may have maybe misunderstood a bit about the purpose of the report and the role of the office, and I think since that and with communications with Commissioner Carlos, I think she has a better understanding of kind of the role of the report and the role of the office. And that's not to disparage Commissioner Kuros. I think it's something new. It was something new. It was the first report. And I think the response and the collaboration between the department and the office will just increase over time. And just whenever you're doing something new, it's going to be the first version, and there's going to be kinks, and it's a new process for everybody. And whether or not we've seen a market improvement from the report to now, I think the folks who testify tonight can probably speak to that better than I can. But we've seen some progress, and I think we'll be in a better position to report on it at the next conditions of confinement hearing.
Thank you. Daryl, is that a newly raised hand? Please go ahead if so. You're muted, Daryl.
It's been a while since I've been on Zoom. I wanted to commend your office again for the work that you're doing. This list, or with that list of, I don't like the term bad apples, but for the sake of this conversation, we'll just use it again, of bad apples, will it be public? Will people know about that? It's interesting that just from the time span that you said, how much maybe one individual or individuals cost the Department of Corrections money in lawsuits and settlements. Imagine if you were to go back 10, 20 years, because many of us who were formerly incarcerated know that there were individuals who consistently did things that assaulted people or did whatever they pleased because there were no consequences. And it seems like the system is still, there's no consequences, but if the public knew that this individual cost the state $100,000 in assaults and or whatever behavior that they're doing, I think that would matter. A lot of times, because people get to, and I'm not saying, it's not a blanket statement about corrections staff, but there are individuals who mistreat humans in the system and then go home and have cookouts in their neighborhood and act like they're doing God's work, but yet they're mistreating people on the inside. And if that's happening, I think the public should have knowledge of it. So basically, you can't just keep getting away with hurting people, hurting humans, and we as taxpayers pay for it, and you have no consequences. So I like the work that you're doing. I'm just curious if that list, or is this information, how do we get this information to people, making it public, or will it be public?
Yeah, I think there's a couple ways. Well, one, the public will kind of see some of these individual staff-related reports that we'll do later this year. The settlement list that I talked about will become public. We'll be posting that on our website shortly. There's actually a requirement under state law that all of the lawsuits filed against DOC related to medical malfeasance and use of force have to be posted on the Attorney General's website. They're up there now. We also will be posting them. So that's one way. But just thinking off the top of my head, I'd have to think about it with my legal hat on. But we could potentially post like the top 10 staffers that have the most complaints in our office. We could certainly compile that report and publish it. I'd have to think through kind of legally the ramifications about doing that.
And you know, as I said, and I mean, at the end of the day, it will also be a deterrent for other people to do things like that. You know, it's not just exposing the bad apple, but also making it a deterrent for others who feel, you know, comfortable or for whatever reason. You know, I know we had a situation at Whiting at one point in time where people were assaulting patients, and even though you weren't the actual actor, but you turned a blind eye to it. And you know, for years now, nobody has said anything, and now we're seeing a lot of deaths happening in corrections and so on and so forth. So I'm excited to see where this goes, and if we can, because I believe this is a way to save lives.
No, I agree, and I do think, you know, to your point about just kind of transparency and sunlight being a disinfectant for bad behavior. As I mentioned, we're going to come out with 2 reports on individual staff later this year, and I think you'll be pleased in kind of the reception and to your point about how it may discourage future bad actors. So
I think you're wise both to be pursuing this and also considering legal issues. But even if there was some need to anonymize that, it still seems valuable, even, both for the reasons Gerald said, and again, to the extent we can sort of put price tags on some of this conduct, for better or worse, that tends to lead to action more readily. I think Mel has one more comment, and then we'll hear public comment. Thanks.
Yeah. In the spirit of the challenge to the committee to lean in, one question I had for you, Attorney Ward, is the statutes that govern how this body is put together and who's appointed, all that stuff, obviously was a compromise of its legislative vehicle, and the office has now grown significantly, and you are in action. And I'm wondering, as you think about the statutes and the appointment categories that, at least in our experience, has created a narrowness in like who is able to fill a role, do you have any recommendations, or is that something we can work with you on of potential update to the statute that loosens or gives more flexibility for appointments? They still have to be bipartisan in nature as it's situated, but I think to tag what you have mentioned, right, like it's a challenge of the narrowness of what's required. So just curious on your thoughts on that.
yeah, no, I just bluntly, I think we should revisit the composition of the committee and the requirements of who gets appointed by which authorities, and I'm happy to do that. You know, the Judiciary Committee is typically graciously giving me at least one legislative vehicle these past 2 sessions. I imagine I'm going to get another one in the upcoming session, and so I'm happy to work with the committee on putting some language in on that regard.
Great, thank you.
And sorry, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, Tag, I just wanted to sort of ask if there's anything that now that we have a quorum, need to vote on. I just unfortunately will have to step away for a little bit for some childcare issues. And I just want to make sure that if there's anything we need to vote on, we can do it while I'm still on the call.
I don't think there is, Ben. If there's time later, there's the chance we'll conduct kind of regular business and schedule things, but we don't need to vote on that now, and can honestly do it via email.
Okay,
So-
I will try to stay on as much as possible.
That's
Just wanted to flag it right now.
No, I appreciate it. Okay, so we'll move on to public comment then. I have a list of names, so when you hear yours, please go ahead. The first is Jamie Anderson. Okay, we can circle back. Nancy Peters is next, I think I saw. Yeah, there's a lot of veterans here, but for anybody else, I think it's a 3-minute time period. Right, yeah, well, I don't think it's up for negotiation, but we appreciate your insight. Okay.
Is this working? Yeah. Okay, members of the Correction Advisory Committee, Attorney Ward, my name's Nancy Peters, and I'm here from Norwich. But today I'd like to share the words of my dear friend Kamau, whose government name is William Lamar Burrell, who can't be here because he's caged at Cheshire CI. Kamau writes, steadfast salutes. The issue I bring to you today is that Connecticut has no viable classification system as it relates to housing assignments, a deficiency that has very harmful consequences. I should know I was clearly a victim of this deficiency. In 2020, I was housed in a cell with someone with whom I was obviously incompatible, someone whose known sexual behavior was completely at odds with my own behavior and my beliefs as a Muslim. The resulting catastrophe was totally predictable and should have surprised no one. While eating in my cell, I was ambushed from behind by this person with whom I'd previously fought. As I reflexively leaped to my feet to defend myself, I slammed my head against an overhead steel TV stand, causing a massive brain bleed. Because this trauma caused me to lose my memory of the event, the damage went undetected till it nearly cost me my life a year later. I ended up having 2 surgeries and have been forever affected as a result, altered. The point I wish to make here is that if Connecticut had a viable classification system, we would never have been put in a cell together, and this episode would not have happened. The people making these arbitrary decisions have no expertise or understanding of how to put compatible people together to avoid violence, maintain safety, and promote rehabilitation, or that is not their intention. I'm a Wesleyan University student who, for no good reason, was recently moved from a housing unit designated for kitchen workers, carpentry shop, and Wesleyan students into a unit known as the most unruly in the facility. Since my move, several other Wesleyan students were also summarily moved from this unit, and for no good reason. One, Jory Strizik, was just moved yesterday. What does ordering the moves of us Wesleyan students say about the DOC's classification system, which disrupts the stability and lives of people engaged in educational pursuits, while leaving in place those who are not doing anything to transform their lives? Because that's exactly what happened. And what does it say about the new commissioner's professed commitment to promoting programming and education as evidence-based ways to advance the goal of rehabilitation prison-wide? Any day now, I may lose everything, maybe even my very life, due to the flawed classification system here. That's my story, and it's ongoing. Thank you. And I'm quite familiar with his situation and that of others, that especially at Cheshire, who are being separated and for whom the program, the Wesleyan educational program, is not being supported by Cheshire adequately, because people are where they should be on one. I'll just finish my thought. Thank you. What we're aiming for is for people to be together who are all Wesleyan students, so that they can support each other on this journey, rather than just you're going to another, all just scattered all over. So thank you very much, and if you have any questions, I probably could make a stab at answering them,
Thank you, Nancy.
or if not.
I'm very familiar with Mr. Burrell, and I
I know.
appreciate you sharing his account, and it echoes similar concerns that we've heard in the office and we're aware of, so thank you for sharing them.
Yes, and I hear them every day, so we can share our information.
Yeah.
Anything else? Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Next is Grace Smith, who would be, I believe, remote.
Hello, can you see me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes,
Go right ahead.
I'm remote. All right, so good afternoon, members of the Correction Advisory Committee. My name is Grace Smith, and I am a senior political science and pre-law student at the University of Connecticut. Danielle Van Doren is currently incarcerated at York Correctional Institution and asked me to read her testimony today because she cannot be here herself. Women should not lose their voices because they are incarcerated. Today, I am simply lending Danielle mine. The words that follow are Danielle's. There are serious problems at York Correctional Institution that need to be addressed. These are not isolated incidents or one-time complaints. They are the conditions women are living with every single day. Food is one of them. We are fed an ultra-processed diet that is high in carbohydrates and sugar. We are served protein pellets labeled not for human consumption. Fresh fruits and vegetables are almost non-existent. When we do receive fruit, it is often still green or already beginning to rot. At every meal, we are given milk or high-sugar drink, even though many women here are lactose intolerant or diabetic. The food we are served contributes to weight gain, diabetes, high blood pressure, and other chronic health conditions. We should not have to sacrifice our health simply because we are incarcerated. Medical care is another constant battle. Unless you are seriously ill, getting medical attention is almost impossible. Care is not prioritized based on medical need, and waiting months to see a specialist has become normal. I have multiple sclerosis, and I have been legally disabled for the past 12 years. Getting the care I need has been a fight since the day I arrived, and I am still fighting. I have been waiting 8 months to see an endocrinologist. That appointment is medically necessary, and it also directly affects my legal case. 8 months is not health care. Mental health care is no better. If you are on sentence, which is more than half of the women at York, meaningful mental health care is almost impossible to access. Instead of evaluation, counseling, and individualized treatment, women are too often over-medicated with psychiatric medications. The conditions inside York continue to put people's health at risk. There is black mold in housing units and showers. Cleaning supplies are inadequate. Newly installed showers have no safety railings, creating an ADA accessibility issue. Backed up sinks can take weeks to repair. Air vents are not cleaned regularly to collect dust and mold. These are not minor maintenance issues. These are conditions women are expected to live every single day. Maintaining family relationships and participating in our legal cases and other challenges. Visits are regularly canceled because of lockdowns or staffing shortages. That includes legal visits with attorneys, making it harder for people like me to participate in their own defense. Recreation is routinely shortened or canceled because of lockdowns and officer shortages, leaving women confined even longer. None of these problems are new. Women have reported them. Advocates have reported them. Oversight bodies have reported them. Yet they continue. The women at York deserve nutritious food. We deserve timely medical care. We deserve meaningful mental health treatment. We deserve safe and sanitary living conditions, and we deserve consistent access to our families, our attorneys, and time outside of ourselves. These are not special privileges. They are basic human needs. Thank you for listening to her testimony.
Thank you very much, Grace and Danielle. Next, we have Cindy Prizzio in person.
On. There we go. Hello, Mel. My name is Cindy Prizzio. I represent One Standard of Justice for all people, all races, all genders, all orientations. We work with people who have been convicted or accused of crimes of a sexual nature. I want to start off by commending Devon, quite frankly. I would never dare critique what he has or hasn't done. There's more than one road to Mecca, and I think he's done a pretty good job, and we're still in early days, and the staff is getting doubled. So I would just suggest that you stay humble, keep the communication open, and and reflect. Right? Because mistakes are made all the time, and it's accountability and transparency we work for in this room. I was coming over here today, and I checked in with a couple of our people, and one guy was just released last Wednesday, and he told me when he was leaving one of the prisons to finish his last bid, 7 months, so this would have been December or January, that a lieutenant told him he may as well commit suicide, he'd be better off. So, to me, this is a war, a culture war, and there's no winners in the culture war. And I'm very disturbed because I'm hearing that one of the think tanks is working with corrections, and in a restorative justice process, which we probably need big time, is we have a facilitator working with one side of the coin and the same facilitator working with the other side of the coin, and we bring them together ultimately in a conference, a discussion. We're adversarial. I read about all the testimony on social media about you've got to really feel sorry for the corrections officers, what they're exposed to, the violence, the leaving there and the stress and bringing it home. Let's remember, they are employed voluntarily Nobody is making them take that job. In fact, I think it pays too freaking much, and that's the only attraction to that job. So we have to remember the power imbalance, and I did the numbers based on the pie chart. To me, there are about 262 staff problems, whether it be abuse, excessive force, or staff problems. That is 13% of nearly 2,000 complaints. And I'm going to guess, based on my knowledge, that is a drop in the bucket. Our people are intimidated and bullied by corrections. And until we remove the bad actors and create a unified culture, we're throwing Band-Aids on this. I'm in despair, quite frankly, over it. It really saddens me. Let's see. I want to ask Devon in community outreach for him to, my community cannot go to libraries or many times community centers because they have enhanced probation, 10 to 35 years. And we need to pick places because those people on parole and probation need the voice. And I want to just say that there was one other thought that I had that I hope I can remember. I'm not on board with putting bad actors in. It's like another public registry. We have to figure out a way. And one way is when my son was in Brooklyn, my cousin, the attorney, because Scott Semple was ignoring us, and the problem was taken care of. No, it wasn't. Hours later, the correction staff was attacking my son. And so my cousin, the attorney, just Googled, and all the lawsuits that were either settled or were in even behind the scenes where deals were made came up on that guy. So I agree, we want to save lives, I do, but I'm looking for, that respectful environment. And quite frankly, I think we have to fire them all and start over, rehire. And
Thank you, Cindy.
I just have to see if there was, I'm sorry, one other thought, I'm sorry. The culture. Okay, I talked about the library. That's it, really. The rest will be in my testimony. I'm wondering if we provided human dignity to start, the respect, and that each side respected each other, would the food taste better, quite frankly? Maybe not, but it would be a good start. Our people are tired of being treated like trash. And this is only a drop in the bucket when we get into a room like this and talk about it. Nobody knows unless you're in there or have the lived experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Shelby Henderson online. Okay, we'll move on to Ivelisse Correa.
Skip me till after Barb.
Okay. After what?
Barbara.
Okay. All right. Kyle Gonzalez. Craig Gore.
Oh, I'll be here.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's taking me a second. I'm at work. All right. My name is Kyle Gonzalez. I am reading the following excerpts. They were written by currently incarcerated individuals who are conveying the conditions of confinement through more time, more torture. The first is from Evan. More Time, More Torture is a movement that seeks to condemn and contest the draconian practices of disproportionate use in adolescent sentencing in the state of Connecticut and the U.S. as a whole. A sentence that exceeds 25 years or more is essentially a death sentence. Generally, the intention of the court is not to met out death. Rather, a lengthy term is meant to ensure an individual's rehabilitation and to deter them from future instances of offending. By punishing people with a lifetime of imprisonment, however, these excessive sentences lead to increased harm, not rehabilitation. Although the American dark ages of tough on crime politics and collateral consequences has recently been eclipsed by the new age brilliance of critical thinkers and scientific breakthroughs, outdated and excessive sentencing policies and procedures remain in place. Put differently, the times have changed, but the sentences have not. Which leads to the question, what is the purpose of continued incarceration when an individual has demonstrated the rehabilitation the court initially prescribed, long before the sentence is complete? The only answer is more punishment, more damage, more destruction, and more torture. More time, more torture declares that higher education not only accelerates rehabilitation, but unequivocally contributes to the transformation of the individual's entire being, making continued incarceration senseless, futile, and after more time, destructive. Higher education inherently does the difficult and sensitive work of forcing one to challenge and change their beliefs and recognize the error of their past ways. Moreover, higher education instills in learners the values of empathy, community, collectivity, charity, solidarity, honor, and integrity. Excessive sentences do not contribute to the rehabilitation of incarcerated individuals, but higher education does. In fact, higher education takes rehabilitation a step further. Higher education helps people discover and maximize their potential by changing their mindset rather than simply punishing them until their debt to society is restored. The transformative powers of education go far beyond the limitations of rehabilitation by changing the foundation of the individual's core beliefs into those that are in alignment with peace and prosperity. But more time, my bad. But the more time an individual spends incarcerated after reaching their transformative peak, the more torture they will increasingly endure. The punitive ways we've come to view rehabilitation have changed, and as a result, it is time for the punitive practices to change too. The next is a poem written by Emit. I pay attention to the silences that people make. Mute. The vernacular trauma of the eye and the hand and the throat. The disease of history, settler, colonial, etc., bracketing the truth, and selected archives suffocating loud. I'm diminished by the word surface gaze, a one-way mirror reflected back at me. More time, more torture.
Thank you very much. And I didn't catch the names of the folks who provided you those writings, but we thank them as well.
Evan Holmes.
Okay, thank you to Mr. Holmes. I mentioned Craig Gore. Was he here? Yes, go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Craig Gore. I'm gonna read a poem by Grillam Veli. The name of the poem is called Flight. I was flying free in different states. Now I'm stuck in a state cage. The ones that know me from the world can see the drastic change. The judge gave me 65 years, but I'm overwhelmed after 7. I once flipped my wings recklessly. Now I'm chained with my brethren. I dream of flying high to better my predicament. My sky, though, is limited, causing hopelessness to trickle in. COs want to see me suffer with rage, rattling in my cage, rattling my cage. But most officers stop plucking my feathers, noticing I'm destined for change. DOC's objective is to rehabilitate. Instead, the system dehumanizes. The weak birds do not elevate their mind. Only the strong strive. Oppressors provide us with TVs and tablets, lending us distractions, fearing we'll use our intellect to turn our ideals into actions. Made a lot of mistakes, and now I'm flying free like a cage. Made a lot of mistakes, now I'm flying free like a sage. It's ironic how I cease to be the bird in the cage. That was dope.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, I got another minute, and I just want to be a voice for my brother who's currently incarcerated in Carl Robinson. My brother was diagnosed with mental health disorder since we was kids. When I was a baby, like 4 or 5 years old, he used to have extreme headaches throughout his whole childhood. He ended up incarcerated for a sex crime when he was a young man, like 15, and he's on the registry, or maybe he was 17. He's on the registry because of that. Anyway, he's incarcerated, and he ended up in a situation where his diagnosis is schizophrenia. He was homeless his entire life. Like, once he became the black sheep of the family, he was homeless. You could do the math for the people who know. So with that being said, he finally got his life together, but he had a charge pending from 2022. So from 2022 all the way to 2026, January, he was doing everything. He was ingrained in the CCAR community. He became a recovery specialist. He was doing his thing, but the judge was giving him time to complete all these trainings. And once he completed them, he said, you got to go to jail. He said, but I got this housing thing, and if I go to jail, they're going to make me lose it. He said, you got to go. You got caught sleeping in your car when you was homeless with a gun in the car, in the trunk of the car you was sleeping in, which wasn't his. So he said, well, could you at least give me 6 months, because that way I won't lose my housing, I won't be homeless again. The judge looked at him and said, no, I'll give you enough time, you get 9 months. Soon as he got incarcerated, his landlord took all the stuff and threw it in the trash. When he got word of it, he went to the counselor's office, and he's trying to talk to the counselor, but those of us who've been incarcerated, counselors are very dismissive of you if they haven't called you to their office. He wanted to just make a call to me or someone to go to his place. They gave him a Class A ticket. Now he has to do the whole 9 months, and he definitely lost his housing, and he's going to have to start his life all over. Like, it's a joke, and I hate this setting because it's ridiculous. But it's a joke, DLC, rehabilitative, all that nonsense. It's like, what are we really talking about? Thank you. My brother's name is Curtis Gore. Carl Robinson Correctional.
Thank you very much. Next is Alex Brown. Okay, Pablo Andrades Ramos. Go right ahead. I'm so, just looking down. I'm so sorry. 'Cause
No, it's okay.
It said remote on my list. I'm sorry. Go
Yeah, I
ahead.
was going to be remote, but
Please go ahead.
thank you. Good afternoon, members of the Correction Advisory Committee and Attorney Ward. My name is Alex Brown. I'm a macro social worker, an advocate, and I spent nearly 5 years incarcerated at York Correctional Institution. Before I begin, I want to ask everybody, if you haven't already, please watch the J. Allen Jones video without looking away. If we're really talking about oversight, you guys need to really see what's happening in there. Today, I want to use my time to amplify the voice of a woman who is currently incarcerated still at York. I want you to hear directly from her, someone who's still living in these conditions, and with her permission, I'll be reading parts of her testimony. She begins with, I'm currently incarcerated, which means I see, experience, and fight to survive the effects of trauma every day. Those of us referred to as offenders often offend because of untreated trauma. And make no mistake, incarceration is extremely traumatizing. She describes daily life inside of York. Incarcerated people are forced to live in a hypervigilant state. The feared danger comes from both directions, peers and staff. The correctional officers keep us in very damaging also keep us in a very damaging hypervigilant state. Male officers, for example, will often flip their handcuffs or jingle their keys when they're around touring, a signal to a woman that a man is on the unit. For us, because of these items, and the fear of handcuffs while taking us to segregation and the mental health unit, there's an automatic cortisol surge. Daily, the threat of random and overused full cavity strip searches, unannounced room searches, where contraband is not found but is planted, and the use of segregation as punishment for infractions is just business as usual. The bottom line is, we never feel safe. She writes about mental health care and describes what women call a drive-by diagnosis. Everyone receives a 10-minute intake interview. It can take up to 30 days to be seen by a psychiatrist for what we refer to here as a drive-by. We call it that because no evaluation takes place. Instead, after listening to our symptoms, the preferred course of action is a chemical treatment. If a resident is on medication, her assigned social worker is required to see her only once a month for 15 minutes. That is the extent of therapy provided. She later writes, "I do not take medication, so I do not qualify for that 15-minute check-in, even after the death of my son." I received that devastating news in the presence of a social worker who stayed with me for 10 minutes and no follow-up. In another statement, she shares how she was seeking treatment for pain in her mouth. For over a year, I was told that the dentist had been notified and that I was on a wait list. That's when I learned the truth. The dentist had never been notified. The dental team got me in, removed my molar, and discovered there was a mass. They ordered a biopsy and revealed it was cancer. She describes recovering from surgery in an infirmary where the call intercoms did not work. There's no safety bars on the showers, and staff said the repair order had been sitting there for over a year. Despite ADA accommodations for private transportation to a hospital, she was later placed in a holding cell with new admissions, forcing her to delay critical follow-up care. She developed an infection. I'm almost done. She developed an infection and later learned her cancer had become invasive and aggressive. She asked the committee this: if someone like me can fall through the enormous cracks here, what chances do the masses have? And she ends with this: we need to make a change. It's long overdue. And I just want to say, these are not my stories from the past when I was locked up. You know, she's there right now. This just came in, this testimony just came in. And I hope her words stay with you as you guys are doing oversight and doing tours. Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, now Pablo Andrade Stramos.
Sir. Hope I'm the right one. Okay. Can I proceed?
Yeah, please.
All right, thank you. My name is Pablo Andrade Ramos. I'm formerly incarcerated. I did 27 years myself at the age of 16. I'm here on the behalf of my brothers, speaking on his behalf, who is formerly incarcerated. My name is Juan Perez, inmate number 406764. I'm currently incarcerated at Madugo Correctional Institution. I understand that incarceration is the consequences for my actions, and I accept responsibility for them. I also understand that one of the goals of the Department of Corrections is rehabilitation. My testimony today is not about seeking sympathy or special treatment. It is about sharing some of the barriers I have experienced while trying to better myself and prepare to return to society. One of the greatest barriers I have faced is access to education. I was told that I had to choose between maintaining a prison job, participating in vocational training. At the same time, my OAP requires me to remain employed. That meant choosing work over education. My incarcerated people want to leave prison with skills that will help us find legal employment and support ourselves and our families. When we work requirements prevent access to education, rehabilitation becomes much more difficult. The same challenges exist with rehabilitation programming. Programs listed in our OAP can be difficult to access. The individuals serving longer sentences are sometimes told they have too much time left to participate, while others begin programs shortly before transferring or being released. Access can also feel inconsistent, leave many people who generally want to improve themselves wanting for opportunity that may never come. Access to medical care has also been a significant concern. Despite submitting multiple requests, I have yet to be evaluated by an assigned medical provider. I have experienced 2 head injuries while incarcerated, both requiring stitches. And I have continued to experience episode of vertigo. Even after expressing concern about sleeping in a top bunk, I was told that nothing could be changed without evaluation that I had been unable to obtain. Repeatedly seeking medical attention without meaningful progress has left me feeling unheard. Recreation is another area affected by staffing shortage. Lockdown frequently reduces the time inmates spend inside their cells. And outdoor recreation is often canceled because staff are reassigned. Our work in the kitchen begins at 3 a.m., and because my work schedule consists with rec hours, these days, when I spent nearly all of my non-working hours confined to my cell. Fresh air and physical activity are not luxuries. They are important to both physical and mental health. For some incarcerated individuals, even a short period outside is the only connection they have with the world beyond the prison walls. Food equality and housing conditions are also affect daily life. For those without family support, institutional meals are their only source of nutrition. Housing assignment sometimes places individuals in situations where serious medical or sanitation concerns make it difficult to eat, sleep, or maintain basic hygiene. These conditions affect both health and dignity. I recognize that correctional facilities face staffing shortage and limited resources. However, rehabilitation depends on more than personal accountability. It also depends on meaningful access to education, medical care, programming, healthy living conditions, opportunity to prepare for life after incarceration. In closing, the Department of Correction exists only because people are expected to change. I'm willing to correct my wrongs, become a productive member of society. My hope is that the system provides meaningful opportunity for those who are sincerely trying to do the same. I take responsibility for my past. I'm simply asking that the rehabilitation be given that same opportunity that accountability has already been given. Thank you for allowing me to share my testimony. That's my little brother, Juan Perez, inmate number 46764.
Thank you very much, and we thank Mr. Perez for submitting that as well.
Any follow questions?
No. Thank you so much for your time.
It will be submitted as well.
Great.
Got it.
Roberto Lugo.
Good evening by now. My name is Roberto Lugo. I spent 25 years inside a well-built hellhole, insulated by policy, protected by bureaucracy, sustained by mismanagement, and surrounded by documented failures that Connecticut has known for decades. Connecticut's own Office of the Correctional Ombudsman has described this system as a sustained institutional failure. Those are not my words, they are the state's own words. I'm not here to describe an unfortunate experience. I'm here to enter evidence. For 25 years, I watched commissioners change, wardens change, policies change, and governors change, while the suffering remained. Connecticut calls it the Department of Correction. Who is correcting the Department of Correction? Behind those walls, your education, your medical care, your family contact, even your dignity can depend more on who is working that day than on written policy. That is not correction, that is arbitrary power. The department works hard to control the narrative, but the press release is not the prison, the website is not the prison, the nice graduation photograph is not the prison. The prison begins where the cameras stop. I have seen what correction is supposed to look like. It looks like Wesleyan's University Center for Prison Education. It looks like the Yale Prison Education Initiative. Those programs transform lives, but they succeed because students and educators refuse to give up, not because the institution consistently removes the obstacles. Then the department stands beside the graduates, celebrates rehabilitation, and accepts the applause. You do not get to build the obstacle course and then take credit because someone survived it. Stop taking credit for victories you made harder to achieve. For 25 years, Connecticut demanded accountability from me. It never accepted excuses from me. Today, I will not accept excuses from the state of Connecticut, because accountability cannot be something we demand only from incarcerated people. It must also be demanded from institutions with power. I survived your system, but do not use my survival to defend the institution that harmed me. I am not proof that the system works. I am proof that people can overcome a system that refuses to change. Even today, after serving 25 years, accepting responsibility, earning an education, continuing my education as a current Wesleyan University student, becoming a community leader, giving back to the very communities this system says it wants to strengthen, I remain on special parole. A reminder that our institutions do not always recognize the rehabilitation they ask people to achieve. Governor Lamont, members of this committee, members of the legislature, leaders of the Department of Correction, you know the problems, you have the reports, you have the testimony, you have the evidence. You no longer have the excuse that you did not know. Now prove that the government is capable of living by the same standard it demanded of the people it has imprisoned. And if meaningful reform is still too much to ask, if correcting the Department of Correction is still inconvenient, then at least do one honest thing. Let's change the name, because correction implies growth. It implies accountability. It implies change. If that no longer is the mission, stop pretending it is. Take the word correction off the building. It does not belong there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Chris Belden. Go ahead,
Hi,
sir.
my
See
name.
you. Yep.
Hi, my name's Chris Belden, and I'm from Ridgefield, Connecticut. I'm reading the testimony of Alexis Rodriguez, who is currently incarcerated at McDougal Walker CI. In submitting this, Mr. Rodriguez said, "I don't need to be anonymous. I just want everyone to know how horrible DOC medical is." He continues, "Sometime in the beginning of 2024, I caught a kidney stone and was sent to UConn for a CT scan. During that scan, they did find a small kidney stone, but also found something else, an incidental find, and said I should see a GI specialist and also get a colonoscopy, but that never happened. At the end of 2024, I kept writing to medical complaining of bad stomach pains and not being able to use the bathroom regularly. My bowel movement went from regular to a little to a pebble to nothing. No matter what I told them, they kept saying I was constipated and kept giving me a laxative. So finally, on February 4th, 2025, a nurse on shift took me serious about my excruciating pains, not going to the bathroom, and now that I was throwing up. When I told him the throw up was brown, he said I might be throwing up feces. He called the doctor and I was sent to the UConn, and after waiting 2 to 3 hours in the ER in excruciating pain, they did a CT scan and saw that I was so full of feces that at any moment it could have exploded and killed me. They rushed me into critical emergency surgery, and when I woke up, I had staples from the bottom of my chest to about 2 inches under my belly button and also a colostomy bag. I was in UConn for maybe a month. In that month, I went through a couple of minor surgeries, was fed through an IV for 2 or 3 weeks, and lost 30 pounds. They tested the obstruction, and it came back that I had stage 3 cancer. After I was discharged, I stayed in the infirmary at McDougal CI for maybe 2 months. During this time, I had surgery to insert a port inside me for the chemo. Then I was moved to one of the nastiest facilities, Osborne CI, and went through 6 months of chemo, during which time I went to UConn every 2 weeks for 3 days for chemo and dealing with what chemo makes you go through. I completed chemo, and then in March of this year, I had another surgery to remove the colostomy bag. This surgery took almost 8 hours because there was so much scar tissue from the first surgery that the doctor had to cut me open again and needed 2 to 3 hands to help her. Then I had to go through the whole process again of getting fed through an IV and losing weight, this time 20 pounds. I went through the ringer. It's been a rough year, but luckily I'm alive today and cancer-free. And I, Chris, would like everyone to know that Mr. Rodriguez cannot find any attorney who's willing to take his case on this because, as one of them told him, quote, he's not dead or a quadriplegic. Apparently, all he suffered because of the DOC's negligence doesn't matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much and for reading that. Next is Barbara Fair, who's remote.
Yes, hello. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I plan to submit written testimony because I can't even begin to voice my concerns in 3 minutes. One thing I say, I wish I had known this job was not as tough as it was on paper, because I might have decided to fight for it. So before I go any further on that point alone, it's almost time for this 2 years to end, and another 4-year position is coming up. And so, as I don't know if you start reviewing for another Oddbuds, if Devon is no longer interested, but I would like to suggest that you look at all the duties that are on that are attached to this job. Because when I look through all the duties that's attached to the job, I too wouldn't want that job because it looked like a lot. So consider when you rewrite this job description, you put what you actually do and not a lot of things that you don't do. So I, unlike Cindy, like she said, she can't critique Mr. Ward's work. I feel it's my duty to do so. And so otherwise, for me, silence is acceptance. And I'm far from accepting the job that I'm seeing not get done. First of all, I think is there needs to be more transparency, not only in the office, because I really can't tell you what goes on in there. But also at who's on the advisory committee. I don't even know that. So it's like, where's the transparency in this position? I know there's going to be two things that we probably won't talk about, and I haven't heard anyone talk about, and that's the loss of one of the Buds person. Although it was publicly, we heard a video that displayed to me that the temperament that a person needs to hold this office is missing a little bit. I was shocked that no one has talked about that incident. It's a public employee. We should know what transpired and what didn't happen. So that's another problem. And also, I have to start with I'm reading the report, and one part really offended me. And that's the part that said the office continued the J. Allen Jones death investigation. I have to take a breath on that. Because first of all, if there was an investigation, what was it? Because I've never heard anything about it. And I worked very closely with the J. Allen case and did a lot of activities to get that video released. So I would like to see that report on J. Allen's death that this office did. Another thing that kind of offended me was the long list of outreach and communications. And the first thing that bothered me was like, okay, Miss Jones was at our meeting Friday. It was an opportunity to show as an outbuzz person that you're a part of her getting justice. So I would think that should have been a person that was on your list. Another person I think should have been on the list of outreach and communications, which I didn't see, but it would be important for me to know anyway, is how many times this office has met with DOC leadership, because I don't think a lot of work is going to get done without that kind of relationship. Like I said, I looked at well, one thing, let me give Attorney Ward something that we agree on, and that's Osborne needs to be shut down. There is no ifs, ands, and buts. There's no $1 million putting into a place that is terrible for anybody to live in. I understand this is a place where they have all their slave labor at, but I'm sorry, that place needs to be shut down. If it's not water, it's people defecating and peeing in bags because the toilet's not working. It's mold. It's no air conditioning. That place needs to be shut down. I hope you will step up, Devon, with us who are trying to get it shut down, and I hope you'll be in the forefront of that fight, because as an Osbuzz, I think you should be. Other things that I'm looking at the report, and there was something about the SRG. So I'd like to see what came out of that investigation with the SRG, the people in security risk, because I think it's a very important task to take to look into. It's great to write the report on how bad things are, but I expected this office to not be about writing how bad things are, but to write about all the changes and policies and stuff that they initiated. That's what I thought this office was going to be about. So I'd like to know about the SRG and investigate how people are getting put in there, because I'm hearing people are getting shut in there, have no history of or long past history of being in a gang. Another thing I'd like to see is a staff analysis. We've been talking about lockdowns for since the Protect Act was passed. We're gonna keep talking about the lockdowns, or we're gonna do a staff analysis and sit down with DOC and say, you know what, according to the staff analysis, you have enough staff.
Barb, if you could just quickly wrap up, because
Okay, I'm
we're
going
not
to
even
quickly,
halfway
because like I
through our
said, that's
folks.
why I have to. That's why I said I have
Thank
to
you.
write a report, because there's just so many things that are concerning to me, and I'm continue to be concerned with every report is a report on our kids, and so and now we're starting to monitor the halfway houses. That's great, and I also would like to. We've been talking about body scanners got initiated. Women and kids have it. Let's see how long it's going to take to get the men with their body scans, and all these things I think are going to have to be pushed by the Ombuds office. So thank you for the work that you're doing. I hope you take this as constructive criticism, because that's how we become great, when we're open to hearing what we're not doing as well and how we could do it better. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. Next is Maurice Blackwell. Oh, sorry, you're right. Circling back. Ivelisse Correa.
Oh, okay, I'll start over. Okay. 1 second, let me end this video. Hey Meta, begin recording. The work of the Ombudsman's Office is necessary, but many complaints are still unresolved. Most of the complaints I input when I was employed with the Ombuds Office were not resolved due to capacity, and incarcerated people were advised to resubmit. We have a similar prison population to New Jersey, and the Ombuds Office is about 1/3 of their size. As a former incarcerated youth in New York CI, I didn't know how bad it could be in every other facility, and I would go home crying because I felt like a sellout. I felt like I should have been protesting. There are still people dying, and I think the only hope I've been able to have for my loved ones on the inside is a new commissioner. That stress is possibly why I went into early labor. I wanted to quit my first week, and it took such a toll on my mental health. People are still dying, and I'm praying the advisory committee gives the advisory committee pushes our legislative body to give the office more teeth. I'm glad Commissioner Quiros is gone. Just because the office won't disparage him doesn't mean I won't. He was resistant to change, but lied to legislators during public testimony while being questioned by state reps, and I know because I was the one texting them the questions. Now to discuss the conditions of confinement. Please push lawmakers no PM to close Osborne. Prison labor is not a good reason to keep it open. Besides the report from the ombuds, we need to continue to increase transparency. It took 8 years for the murder of J. Allen Jones to be witnessed by the public. There is a mother currently in touch with Stop Solitary whose son was beaten to death at Garner CI in 2025. How long will accountability take for that family? Will it pass the statute of limitations again? How long will it take for healthcare to be administered humanely? If you don't care about people, at least consider the tax dollar savings. I will summarize. Soft strikes and blue flu often happen in violation of union bargaining agreements every summer, and yet there are no investigations. Body cameras are still not rolled out. Body scanners are still not in all the facilities. The PROTECT Act is still being violated. People in PC are unable to access rehabilitative programs, but so are regular inmates. And please make it a criminal offense to have sex with someone in custody. Girls in York cannot refuse without retaliation, and it leaves women and girls vulnerable. We need more oversight. We need more transparency and tighter legislation, not down the line, but right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maurice Blackwell.
Hello, my name is Maurice Blackwell. I'm reading on behalf of an individual who's incarcerated, whose name is William Snake. I was in the block with J. Allen Jones that day in 2018. I recall how bad they beat him during that cell extraction, supposedly for his own good, when he needed inpatient medical attention. I heard his screams, I saw them put the spit bag over his head, heard him choking. Most importantly, I have been through the controlled strip search that they were telling him to submit to when they finally beat him to death. It is scary, let me tell you. They bend you over a bed with 6 to 8 male officers holding you down and pulling your pants and underwear and shirt off. Gardner's the only facility that does it like that. It is so humiliating and degrading and just scary. They hold a can of mace to your face, and if you flinch, they spray you. Then if any of you try to spit the mace out or any snot comes out of you, which the mace causes to happen, they put that bag over your head. You think you are about to be raped. It's even worse if the bag is already over your face because you can't see anything. You just feel them forcing you to your knees and bending you over. There is absolutely no reason to bend you over like that if you are cooperating. For the free citizens listening, actually imagine being forced to your knees, pinned down, maced in your face, bent over a bed, clothes forcibly ripped off you just because you are having some mental health issues and need help. This is what they do to us every single time we are admitted to the inpatient medical unit or SEG in Gardner, and only in Gardner. The commissioner has us designated as a controlled strip search facility because we are mental health. But when you are having acute issues and feeling paranoid as it is, the last thing you need is to feel you are about to be raped, to be humiliated, to be degraded. For those of you who have seen the actual video of the strip search he resisted that led to him being beaten to death, let me tell you, this was not some unusual occurrence. It happens to every single inmate here anytime we need help. And a lot of us do fight in one way or another and end up sprayed and beaten. It is totally degrading, and it's just hard to remain calm when they do not do this for your own good. Even if there is a need for a controlled strip search, there are other ways to do it, such as allowing the inmate to remain standing. Being forced onto your knees, bent over and pinned down with mace held to your face every time you need help is unconscionable. I call for you to ban controlled strip searches in Gardner, or at least have the department modify how it is done so inmates don't feel the need to fight to death to keep from having it done to them. You hear them in the video, submit to the strip search. Well, I'm here to tell you, that's easier said than done. No man wants to be forced to his knees. bent over and pinned down, clothes ripped off, one leg, one arm at a time, while a room full of men are watching and recording the whole thing on camera. Facilities across the state allow inmates to strip themselves. Gardner should be the same. Mental health inmates have dignity too, and if the department claims it's necessary, at least make them modify how it's done to preserve our dignity. Jay Allen died that day resisting a controlled strip search, so many of us have been maced and beaten resisting, and it's just not necessary. I call on our legislators to make sure Jay Allen did not die in vain. Jay Allen was asked to just call him Jones in here. He was a good guy. He had some mental health issues, but he was a good, peaceful person with a sense of humor. I will always remember him. Ban or modify those controlled strip searches in Gardner. Additionally, let it be said that in my housing unit alone, there have been 2 cases of inmates being beaten by officers after they were secured and handcuffed in just the last 2 months. We need to treat mental health inmates better than this. It's like some of these officers took the job just to hurt mental health inmates. There are a lot of good officers, but seeing those 2 incidents in the last 2 months remind me that though it's 2026 and things have improved, there's a long way to go. I've seen too much abuse from officers in this facility. I once watched an officer punch an inmate's eyeball right out of his head, so it was just hanging by whatever nerves were attached. That was a few years ago, and that officer no longer works here. But seeing inmates are still being beaten in handcuffs is traumatizing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have Svetlana Baidak, I see online. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Svetlana Baidak. I am a mental health professional. Also, I'm a wife to a man incarcerated in Connecticut DOC for over 26 years now. I sat here at the last hearing, and yet here I am again with almost exactly the same concerns. At that time, I spoke about my husband's serious medical conditions, classified as priority 4, meaning serious and imminent. Those conditions have been known to the department's administration since 2012. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Office of Corrections Ombuds for its efforts in bringing his medical needs to the forefront. Despite those efforts, though, he still has not received even one of the 3 surgeries he requires. A recurrent concern raised by incarcerated individuals is safety. No one should be threatened, assaulted, sexually abused, or lose their life while in state custody, but that continues to occur. Safety also depends on professionalism and proper staff training. Too often, incarcerated individuals and their families are treated with disrespect. Mail are withheld, visits are canceled, routine emails take weeks to be delivered. I do understand our calls have to be monitored, but we hear you. We hear you insert comments such as your child got a good grade, which serves no legitimate security purpose. For a father who has not received a photograph of his child for more than 2 years, this is not about safety or security. It's a necessary reminder of the control being exercised over family communications. Male interference and unnecessary cruelty should never be accepted as standard practice. Greater accountability and truly independent oversight would help reduce assaults, contraband, and deaths in custody while restoring public confidence in the system. If I subjected an animal to the same level of neglect, inadequate medical care, deprivation, or interference with basic welfare, I would face criminal charges. But when I ask about my husband's basic civil rights and human rights to be upheld, that he receives necessary care and be treated with dignity, I'm met with obstacles. We demand change for our loved ones because they're human beings. We want them safe, alive, and dare I say, rehabilitating. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Baidak. Sorry for the mispronunciation. Next is Elizabeth Hinton. Go ahead. There's a button there just so you're heard online. I'm not sure it matters, but yeah, as long as we see the red.
Good afternoon. I wish to thank the members of the Correction Advisory Committee for the opportunity to testify. My name is Elizabeth Hinton. I'm a professor of history, Black Studies, and law at Yale University and Yale Law School. I am a founding member of the Coalition for Communal Healing Through Justice Reform and the founding director of the Justice for Everybody movement at Yale. I want to share what incarcerated people themselves have documented through our Injustice Journal. Across hundreds of dated reports, we've gathered from extensive tablet outreach at McDougall-Walker, Cheshire, Corrigan, Osborne, Garner, and Robinson. The same patterns appear again and again. Prolonged confinement in cells, canceled recreation and visits, delayed medical care, unsanitary facilities, staff retaliation, and the absence of meaningful accountability, all themes that you've heard through many testimonies today. These complaints are not isolated. They describe systems operating as intended or systems that have ceased to function at all. The most persistent problem, as you probably know, is the routine cancellation of out-of-cell time. At McDougall-Walker, people recorded repeated losses of outdoor and gym recreation over days, weeks, and even years, often because an officer was pulled to another post. Christopher L. described looking through a window while people in other units went outside. After so many cancellations, he wrote that daylight had become so unfamiliar that when he finally went outdoors, his eyes struggled to adjust. Anthony V. explained that recreation reduces his stress. Another resident uses it to complete his schoolwork. Yet recreation, programming, religious practice, and family visits are not treated as basic components of health and rehabilitation, but as the first thing sacrificed to staffing failures. The Injustice Journal also records conditions that directly threaten physical safety. After a laundry fire at McDougall-Walker, incarcerated people were made to walk through smoke and fire suppression chemicals without protective equipment while staff stood nearby wearing PPE. One man reported waiting months for treatment of the resulting sinus problems. At Robinson, residents reported having no hand soap or paper towels, even though they shared toilets, living areas, and meals. At Osborne, people described sewer odors from broken sinks, extreme heat, water outages, and long-standing asbestos that reportedly prevents the installation of air conditioning. Again, more reasons why Osborne needs to be closed. Most alarming are reports of force and retaliation. A witness at Garner described officers continuing to punch a man with mental health needs after he was handcuffed and face down with a knee on his neck as he said, "I can't breathe." Shanta P. reported being sent to restrictive housing on the basis of an officer's allegedly false disciplinary report, even after the video contradicted the officer, and then transferred after challenging it. Shanta's conclusion should guide this hearing. Quote, "Inmates are always held accountable for our actions. The officers should too." The punishment imposed by a court is incarceration. It is not untreated illness, preventable isolation, humiliation, retaliation, or exposure to violence. I urge the advisory committee to treat these accounts and the testimony you've heard from others today not as anecdotes to be explained away, but as evidence demanding immediate investigation and structural remedy. Thank you.
Thank you. What was the name of the
It's called the Injustice Journal.
Injustice Journal.
And we can share with you that data if it would be helpful. I'd also like to, you've heard from some of our contributors today. I'd love to approach so I can give you copies of our latest issue of Liberation Live, More Time, More Torture.
That'd be
Yes,
great.
please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, Elizabeth Ross is remote, perhaps?
Yes, hello.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, and thank you to the members of the committee. Today I'll read an excerpt written by Chardell, who shared the following conditions of confinement through More Time, More Torture, which you're receiving now. Due to the especially punitive laws targeting young people in the 1990s, including the super predator movement, mandatory minimums, and over-sentencing practices, a generation of mothers watched as their children matured and became men behind bars. Beyond our original sentences, which separated us physically from our loved ones, cumulative sanctions accrue over the course of one's confinement. From hard mattresses and echoing hallways that interrupt our sleep, to disrespectful and careless staff, to the constant surveillance we live under, prison does not just punish us by physically removing us from our past lives. It worsens our conditions to the point that a sort of self-imposed emotional isolation is the only tool we have at our disposal to protect our loved ones from the horrors of our experience. Ultimately, our relationships bear the cost, incapacitating our rehabilitation by destroying ties with our parents, siblings, children, and friends. That trauma is not solely felt by incarcerated people themselves. The torture that is inflicted on the incarcerated is shared through a systemic culture of degradation. Loved ones wait for phone calls, which could at any point be dropped. Lockdowns and closures make it so that someone might drive hours to see you for only an hour-long visit just to be denied entry to the facility upon arrival. Once at the facility, some officers treat visitors unprofessionally, being rude, hostile, and even vulgar towards our loved ones. Visitors are subjected to metal detectors, pat-downs, and waiting in tiny, cramped rooms for a visit that may, at the last moment, be denied. Mailed-in kids' drawings, birthday cards, photos, and letters can be rejected for any reason, with it taking weeks or months for the mail to be returned to the sender. These are just some of the many methods facilities use to deter family members from remaining an active support system for those incarcerated. Prison is designed to break us. Mental stress causes physical stress, which causes the deterioration of one's physical health, and vice versa. Most people come out of prison a different person than when they came in. Upon release, formerly incarcerated people and their families have to readjust to one another and relearn each other, beginning, in some ways, an entirely new relationship. A mother faces the burden of realizing that the person she raised since infancy has changed in deep and irreversible ways, and prison is the reason why. The process of relearning on the outside can be just as grueling as the process of concealing and coping on the inside. Both constitute psychological trauma that can bring about mental deterioration, PTSD, anxiety, and depression, amongst other conditions. This infliction of an accumulated trauma equates to cruel and unusual punishment, leaving the family, if one is lucky to have any left when returning home, not the state or the Department of Corrections, to pick up the pieces of a broken individual. Thank you for listening to those words, again, shared by Chardell, and I hope that the committee will consider this as they deliberate.
Thank you so much. Brian Jordan.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, go ahead.
My name is Brian Jordan. I'm also a founder member of the Coalition for Communal Healing Through Justice Reform and the lead researcher at the Justice for Everybody movement at Yale. I'll be brief. I was reluctant to speak here today, and after hearing some people, some things moved me, especially the Jay Allen situation. I watched that video many times. I went to Barbara's Fair hearing and heard from his mother. I wish more people was there. And one of the things that struck me about listening to his mother is that nobody from the Connecticut Department of Correction has ever called her and even notified her that her son was dead. And I think above all else, that defines corrections. That defines how they see people's humanity. And when I was struggling whether to even come here today, policy doesn't fix that. Like, that's a culture. I served over 20 years inside the Department of Correction. I could tell you things you wouldn't imagine, and they're never on paper. Reports don't fix it. People don't come see it. So I don't really know the purpose sometime of some of this stuff, because I know the reality of living inside a prison for decades, and what you are reporting on are like, you know, they're very, I don't want to say small, because Attorney Ward is seeking to reform a system that won't give him the power to reform it. So it's an impossible feat, and I salute him for the work that he does, but it's tough. But I think watching that video, it defines corrections. I was in Gardner for many years. I seen beating after beating of mental health patients in Gardner. Some call them inmates. I think there is where you're housing your mental health and mentally ill patients. You're housing them in Gardner and Osborne. And that's where your patients are, and they're being beaten mercilessly. And I watched it. I've seen it for decades. But that video defines how corrections work. Force, compliance, by any means. And unfortunately, he lost his life in that battle of compliance. He wasn't assaulting anybody. He wasn't aggressive. He just did not want nobody to go in his anus. And for that, he lost his life. And on a response to that, not one DOC official called his mother to tell her that her son had died. And I don't know what policy changes that. That's a culture that you have created, that you have allowed, that sustains and reminds us that those particular bodies have no value. And they've been saying this for hundreds of years, petitioning and appealing to power to see the value in Black and brown bodies. And that's just another example that even in his demise, 8 years of silence, even in his death, you disrespect him. You disrespect his mother. He hadn't even no value in the last decade. And it just shows you the culture that you have created. And you created it. You sustained it. You promoted yourselves. You raised your salaries. You know, you put people to work. You send your kids to sit on furniture by them so they could be educated to take the jobs when you leave. And this is the culture. I don't know how you fix it. I wish I knew. I think you need to destroy it. But I don't know how you fix this. I don't know what you could write. I don't know what you could recommend. I lived in there. It's rampant. And it's hardly written about. So, you know, I support you, my brother, as you know that. And I wish, you know, the best for you. And, you know, whatever we could do on our side to support your work, we will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joanne Cantamessa.
I thought I was prepared to do this, but after hearing Maurice and now Brian, I am literally sick to my stomach. Hearing what goes on in Garner, especially, thinking that Garner was probably one of the better facilities, especially for mental health. My grandson is at Garner, and he'll be there a long time. So I am physically sick to my stomach right now. Today I'm supposed to be here. I'm reading a testimony on behalf of Hakari Miller, who could not be here. I hope I do her wonderful testimony justice because I am so upset. I quote, "The veneer of prison and what it stands for has been held up as a safety net for American society. The idea of safer streets appeals to every community. Mixing it, the prospect of rehabilitating the people who threaten those communities, then shrouded under the idea of justice being served. And there you have a prison system that hides itself behind safety and security, a veneer. But veneers are meant to cover and conceal unappealing truths. There is a reason why Connecticut doesn't have a civilian oversight board embedded within the Department of Corrections. It keeps the truth of what happens behind prison walls out of public view. Here are a few truths the public should know. Poor ventilation has created a stench that never goes away. There is an outbreak of drain fields, made worse because we eat in the same area as open showers and toilets. Staffing shortages routinely shut down recreation, outdoor recreation, and visits. If this happens so frequently, one would think the department would be prepared. Educational opportunities are limited by underutilized classrooms, underutilized computer access, and inadequate ventilation in classrooms. Visits are canceled without proper notice, even though many low-income and working families have very little opportunities to travel to prisons. Consistency matters when families are arranging transportation and time off from work. Certain areas of prisons have been labeled the hood or the ghetto, recreating the very environments that led many people to incarceration instead of supporting rehabilitation. Lockdowns, training days, and little or no access to exercise promote a sedentary lifestyle and the health problems that inevitably follow. These issues don't even begin to cover some of the uncomfortable truths about Connecticut prisons. The mental strain placed on incarcerated people and their loved ones by draconian policies should be widely known. And if it isn't, why aren't the hard questions being asked? Why aren't suicide, overdoses, and mental health being aggressively examined? Where is the same accountability expected of incarcerated people when it comes to our prison officials? In closing, solutions require legislators to demand progressive, practical, efficient, and effective policies. Policies that include input from real reformers, community-based organizations, and educators. We need real oversight because no amount of reform will begin to address the real issues created by the carceral system if no one demands to see what goes on behind the veneer. Thank you.
Hey, Miss Cantamessa, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Thank you for sharing that. I can imagine how difficult it was.
I am sick. I am sick to my stomach right now. Physically sick to my stomach to hear what I hear.
I want to share a contact with you. I don't want you to put your contact information out publicly, but if you could take 2 seconds and write this email down, I want to give you the direct email of the Ombudsman staff that goes to Garner regularly, and I want you, when you can, to try to reach out to her so you can share your grandson's name so we can try to touch base with him when we're in the facility, and he can have a direct point of contact for someone who's there and has oversight capacity. So
I understand, and I will take it down, yes. But the other side of that is whenever any incarcerated person speaks up, there's retaliation. I don't want this to happen to my grandson because of retaliation.
I understand. Well, let's talk offline. But the email is Amy, AMY dot ZIPF at ct.gov. And that's Amy Ziff. She's our healthcare ombudsman, but she's also our assigned staffer to Garner. And so please reach out to her, and you all can talk offline, and we can try to help as much as we can. But I certainly understand your concerns, and I appreciate you sharing them tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Devon, can we also check on the brother that Ms. Cantamessa spoke about, who she read for today?
Mr. Hakari Miller?
Yes, can we do that?
Yes, sir.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Cantamessa. We really appreciate your testimony and speaking for the brother who can't be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. That was hard, but we really appreciate it. Thank you. Next is Andre Pierce. I don't have the Zoom in front of me, but I gather he's not there. Crystal Faracia.
Here. Thank you to everyone who's testified, and thank you to the committee. My name is Crystal Faritia, she, her, hers. I'm a second-year law student at Yale, and I am reading the testimony of Kevin P. Campbell because he cannot be here today because he is incarcerated. Let me pull it up. Okay, it begins. My name is Kevin P. Campbell. My purpose here today is to shed light on the need to restore the law library on our tablets and why the Department of Correction is not the best choice for determining its content. To begin, having proper law resources is critically important, and is required by law. When I was housed at Walker Correctional Institution for 4 years, there was no law library to access. Fortunately, I had family and friends who supported me. Through them, I began acquiring legal materials. I started with the basics: the Connecticut Practice Book, General Statutes, and Black's Law Dictionary, and eventually books containing cited case law. Ironically, I now had more currently relevant case law in my cell than is available in the library at McDougall Correctional Institution. One article I read referenced the Connecticut Prosecution Standards, published by the Connecticut Division of Criminal Justice. My current appeal involves allegations of prosecutorial misconduct. One can easily see why such a publication may assist me. My family located it online, made a copy, and mailed it to the prison. When it arrived, I was informed in writing that it was forbidden and would not be delivered. I tried the administrative remedies, to no avail. My legal representative confirmed there was no legitimate reason for its rejection. My attorney then mailed me the exact same publication as legal mail. This time, I received it. It is important to understand that nowhere in this publication does it state that it is classified, confidential, or unavailable to the public. The first chance I had, I went to the prison library and made copies so others could use it as well. This story is true. It clearly illustrates the need for someone other than the Department of Correction to ensure that the law requiring access to legal materials and resources is enforced. Access to the physical law library is limited to 1 hour each week, if staffing allows. This month, my housing unit only had access twice because of staffing shortages. As you can imagine, even in a perfect world, 4 hours a month is totally inadequate. The law library that was on the tablets was an invaluable resource. It provided access to current legal materials that many of us could not otherwise obtain. I respectfully ask this committee to support restoring the law library on DOC tablets and to ensure that the law requiring access to legal resources is fully enforced. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Janesha Lopez. I don't see that name online. So Elizabeth Bismarck. I see Elizabeth. Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you so much for allowing me to read on behalf of. Can you still hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just have to pull up the document. My name is Liz, and I am here because 2 people who are currently incarcerated cannot stand before you to tell their own stories. They asked me to lend my voice so that theirs can be heard. The first testimony is from someone who asked to not be named. Nearly 10 years ago, I signed up for tier 2 programming. The answer is simple: you have too much time. Again, the next year I asked. The answer is simple: you have too much time. The year after that, you have too much time. For nearly a decade, I kept getting the same answer. At some point, I was told to wait because I had too much time left in my sentence. I wanted rehabilitation. I asked for rehabilitation. I was told to come back years later. I understand why people who are going home need programming. They do. But if rehabilitation is one of the purposes of incarceration, why do we tell someone they have to wait years before they're allowed to begin? Re-entry is an event. Rehabilitation is a process. One happens on a single day, the other takes years. Every year that someone is told you have too much time is another year they're denied the opportunity to grow, learn, and to become a better person. You can't say rehabilitation happens and then make people wait years to access it. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for the opportunity to start the work of rehabilitation when I'm ready, not years later. Thank you. The second testimony I'm going to read is from my fiance, Armando Rivera. He's currently at McDougall Walker. To whom it may concern, my name is Armando Rivera. I first want to address the lack of mental health assistance within this facility. I'm sorry, I need to backtrack. He has been at McDougall Walker for 20 years and has been incarcerated for 27. So he really has a real understanding of what goes on. Mental health assistant. A very good friend of mine who was ready to go home lost his father on a Friday, and there was no mental health professionals to assist him. He ended up taking his life due to this fact. The mental health staff and facility overlooked and neglected his mental health issues. Also, the staff COs included need to have mental health training as they speak to the inmates in an unprofessional manner and threaten us with segregation or taking our jobs. Also, when the weather is nice out on the weekends, COs call out sick, or we're told that there's not enough COs, and we are subject to cruel and unusual punishment by being deprived and placed on lockdown due to short staff. I personally can attest to this. There was a week where they were on lockdown, a week straight, and then another time, another week. Over the last month, every Saturday visit has been canceled, and I can only go on Saturdays or Mondays. That's me as a family member. This causes visitation and causes undue stress on our loved ones. I'm almost done. It drives a wedge in our already strained relationship. The medical needs to be addressed as well. Personally, I had a shoulder injury that I reported over and over again. And after 10 years, I had to file a medical habeas to get an MRI. I ended up having to have surgery that could have been avoided if the situation had been taken care of. Next, I just want to address again the black mold in the vents with dust, making everyone in the unit sick with breathing problems. This is due to maintenance not doing their jobs. I also would like to address the food issues. Out of 60 lunch and dinners that are served per month, I only eat 11. The slop they serve on the other day is not fit for a dog. Most inmates won't eat it. If not, we're also served moldy and expired food. What a waste of taxpayers' dollars that are so many meals that are being thrown away. And this is the last part. Lastly, I want to address the pay for the people that work that they've only received a quarter raise in the last 10 years. They get $1 a day, but yet the commissary prices continue to skyrocket. We need to reflect the inflation of commissary. I make $28 a month for a 7-day-a-week job. The dollars the state is saving by not hiring outside workers, some of it should come to us. The industry workers are paid properly. Why not maintenance and kitchen workers? How are they supposed to survive, especially the ones that don't have any family members to help? Our loved ones are struggling on the outside with the cost of living, and for them, it's not always easy to help. We should receive better pay so we don't have to be a burden to our loved ones. Yes, even though we are in prison, we still have rights, and they are being violated on a daily basis. We are human beings and not animals, and we deserve to be treated as such. Thank you for your time. And if I could just take 30 seconds to say, I have been crying this entire time. How are we allowing this? How are we allowing this? We have the money in Connecticut to make the prison system better. How are we allowing these people to be treated like animals? They're human beings. Please, Attorney Ward, please, whatever we can do to help, we are here. But what's going on at Gardner? That's crazy. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We next have DeAndre Brown. I don't see online. Okay, Aisling Putnam.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Perfect. Good afternoon. My name is Aisling Putnam. The following excerpts were written by currently incarcerated individuals who are conveying their conditions of confinement through more time, more torture. On behalf of Jonathan, 42 years, a day-for-day definitive sentence where you can do nothing to change that ironclad number. It is strict retributivism at its finest. Sorry, I think I was muted. It is strict retributivism at its finest, a sentence that forever shackles you to the person you were the day you committed your crime. You are nothing more than a monster and a villain beyond rehabilitation, beyond redemption, beyond humanity. That is the narrative a definitive sentence creates. That narrative, however, is only one part of my story. While my sentence means to tie me permanently to the day of my crimes, I have chosen otherwise. Even in the midst of policies and practices that have deemed certain people ineligible for rehabilitation and redemption, I believed that rehabilitation and redemption were possible. I found that the shadows that darkened my existence could be countered by light, that the void I lived with could be filled by my thoughts and actions, and that my despair would only be driven away by new hopes and new dreams. I discovered that in the midst of my hardship, I didn't have to be a monster or a villain, that I could still be a human, fallible but human nonetheless. I know that a definitive sentence is designed simply to inflict pain. Yet, when I finally looked beyond the darkness, I realized that my suffering was useful. It enabled me to understand the depth and importance of compassion. Only when we suffer do we begin to understand others' suffering. We develop a depth of empathy that could have never otherwise been attained. I would never wish my pain on another, but I have made it meaningful for me. It has allowed me to connect more wholly with the humanity of others, and in that way, maybe more human myself. On behalf of Sam Gillis, a man incarcerated at the age of 17 in 1994, was recently granted a parole hearing at the age of 50. When he went before the Board of Pardons and Paroles, he had high expectations of being granted parole under Connecticut's juvenile parole legislation. To his dismay, he was denied. The board members calmly told him that due to the severity of the offense, he would have to try again in 5 years, as if the severity of the offense could somehow change in 5 years. Another man was sentenced in 1979 to 75 years to life. He was 26 when he committed his offense. He has come up for parole 4 times and has been denied each time. He is now 73 years old and has served over 47 years in the Connecticut state prison system. After one of his denials, the letter he received from the board stated the following factors: no benefit for society for least, inadequate evidence of offenders' change, impact on victims' family, and the ever-present severity of the offense. These are just 2 examples of individuals who, by every correctional metric, have met and exceeded the stated goals of corrections, participating in all offered programs, maintaining steady employment, staying out of trouble, and for some, completing higher education and prison programs. Yet they continue to be snubbed by a system which claims to recognize the efforts of those who are willing to work towards personal change. I'll just finish this quickly. Apparently, then, rehabilitation, which is rooted in the belief that people are capable of transformation, can easily be disregarded due to actions, events, and circumstances that occurring in the past can never change. When the parole board makes decisions based on the severity of the offense and ignores rehabilitation, it denies the very principle it exists to assess, an individual's capacity for change. When incarcerated individuals have at least a modicum of hope, it provides them with an incentive to better themselves. However, the concept of rehabilitation within Connecticut's corrections and parole system is fraught with ambiguity, presenting and simultaneously curtailing hopes for those seeking to reintegrate into society. This duality stems from the tension between overly punitive policies that have been in place since the early 1990s and an emerging rehabilitation-centered ethic in our justice system. But if rehabilitation is the destination, the crux that a reintegration into society hinges on, then our courts, prisons, and parole boards have the responsibility of providing us with the directions and resources to arrive there. Otherwise, we do not have a Department of Corrections, but a Department of Punishment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now see DeAndre Brown.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Before I start, I would like to say long live Jalen Jones and everyone that's suffered through the hands of DOC. Hi, my name is DeAndre Grimdy Brown, Executive Director of Evolve Love and affiliate of BLM 86O. And I'll be honest with you guys, I'm glad you guys are here, but I'm not happy to be here. I've been wanting to have hope for the incarcerated peoples in the justice system since before I even had a run-in with the law. I've had friends of mine incarcerated since I was in middle school, hoping they're okay, but most are not. I've also been incarcerated for a total of 4 years and been in DOC custody for the same crime I committed at 20 years old for the past 7 years and 5 months. So I've seen the inside of these facilities, and sometimes I even thought I was dying in there. I've seen people commit suicide, SEALs kill and abuse incarcerated peoples, and nurses and doctors neglect and abuse the ones that need help the most. Now that I'm home, I've been messaging friends I made in prison and giving them hope that the conditions will change, and every time they call, it's a new problem with the whole establishment and the system in general, from the prison itself to the ombudsman office. I have a colleague named Dejan who has been needing medical attention for the past year and now can't use the bathroom without pain. Beth Taylor Vaughn, who hasn't had care for his mental health, has been targeted by high-ranking COs for wanting to be treated as a human being. Also, Charles Ostradamus, who hasn't gotten a reason why he hasn't gotten parole or community release, while also finding out they forged his signature to waive parole after he took every necessary steps from tier programs to becoming a coach for people who suffer with substance abuse, at the same time as writing multiple books for autistic children. Half of the people that don't deserve to be in there get treated the worst. And the conditions are so bad, from the lack of AC in the cells to the people in the ombudsman office, making people be patient for proper care that haven't received proper care in years. No offense to the ombudsman office, but some people they have hired don't get the job done, and this could lead to more deaths and traumas in prisons. These are real human beings' lives we are talking about, so we should treat it as so. Most people that are in Connecticut have been guilty until proven innocent, and the conditions are so bad. Most innocent people plead guilty just to leave the abusive and oppressive facilities, not because they're genuinely guilty, ever, most of the time. So I feel we should keep that in mind also. So to talk about everything that needs fixing in the system, and administration would need more than 3 minutes, but from solitary confinement still feeling comparable to hell, to reentry programs not having enough funding, to parole and halfway houses being not fair for most, and a whole nother sentence on top of what people already went through. And I have to mention the mental health staff inside of every facility, prescribing people the wrong meds, guinea pigging incarcerated people, and to them forcing them to sit in their mental illness for weeks to months, which I have experienced, before they even get care on top of it, which is traumatizing to think about. There's many more things I could speak on and stories I can tell. I'll summarize. And I know you guys are supposed to ask the questions, but I have one question for everyone here. As a world that's constantly evolving, what will incarcerated and formerly incarcerated people have to look forward to in the coming years? And also, do you guys have ideas yourself to lessen recidivism, help them heal from what they already been through, and also ideas to reintroduce them to society with more rehabilitating methods? And what message do you have for the innocent and fighting people that are incarcerated that are looking for hope? They want to hear from you more than they want to hear from me, because you guys are a big part of what can help. Thank you all for listening and taking the time to have this hearing today. The conversation is needed and appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll next hear from Tamara Graywolf. Tamara.
Am I there? Good afternoon.
Go ahead.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak on the behalf of one of the incarcerated inmates who cannot be here. I also want to say my youngest son, Justin, is currently incarcerated at a facility in Suffield, has been since the age of 19, and is now 38 years old. A little bit unthinkable. Anyway, so on behalf of Mark, I'm going to read a statement. Much of today's justice reform efforts have centered around at-risk youth who unfortunately made grave mistakes in their young lives. Less discussed, but equally urgent, is the growing elderly prison population, an issue which some states like California, New York, and Massachusetts have begun to address through elderly parole reforms. Connecticut, as the state with the oldest average prisoner in the country, should follow that lead. Most elderly prisoners today were over-sentenced decades ago. Therefore, the average age of an incarcerated individual in Connecticut is 40 years old, accounting for thousands of young people who fell victim to the severe sentencing practices that took place in their youth. As of late June 2025, there are 2,735 prisoners who are considered elderly in the Connecticut Department of Corrections. Despite no longer posing a risk to society, we remain trapped by unjust sentencing practices of the past. But all has not been lost in our old age. We have not merely aged out of crime, but we have done the work to ensure that we will never commit harm again. And that work consists of reflection, accountability, and transformation. I am ready to re-enter society. I am confident that my doing so would be a huge benefit to my community. Quite simply, Connecticut's prison system does not have the capacity nor the desire to treat us well with dignity as we advance into our old age. Our Eighth Amendment rights as prisoners continue to be blatantly disregarded in Connecticut. We, the elderly, who rot away in facilities that were never meant to house us for long, or are the vestiges of this bygone era. We are living proof that not only are our prisons incapable of protecting the most vulnerable captives, but that our justice system is not guided by common sense or a real pursuit of public safety. Connecticut faces a moral question that is largely practical in nature. Will it continue to waste hundreds of millions of taxpayers' hard-earned money to house and inadequately care for a population which has demonstrated immense growth and transformation and armed to further public safety rather than detracting from it? Or will it enact policies that will save residents money and make the state a safer place? The answer should be obvious. More time, more torture. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, Marcus Harvin. You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. As I said, I decided to come. The person that I'm here to speak for is way too important for me to speak for him through a screen. First and foremost, thank you guys for taking this time out to listen to me. My name is Marcus T. Harvin. I am the president and founder of Newhaltville Fresh Starts, Inc. I'm the chair of the City of New Haven's Homeless Advisory Commission. I'm a rising 2L at Western New England University School of Law, and I am a former resident of the I-1 housing unit at McDougal. I sit here in the stead of my brother, Justin Serdyka. Testimony by Justin Serdyka from McDougal, the Mausoleum, to the Correctional Advisory Committee and the public. Earlier this month, ironically during what's become a routine weekend lockdown, word spread of another hearing regarding the conditions of our confinement. Yet the prevailing question from past hearings still remain: is anyone listening? There's an accumulation of traumas to reckon with when consistently speaking out against a firsthand perpetual harm, let alone a collective injury, by testifying continuously, by reliving and reciting the conditions one endures while confined, by surviving those uncertain conditions. These traumas intensify as circumstances only grow more dire by the day, worsening since the last time we spoke up and spoke out. The threat of retaliation only rising as we mobilize and make ourselves more visible, more believable, with every testimony recorded, our identities on display to the prisons that hold us captive. The more people want to know the truth, the more vulnerable we become. The more you ask, the more we answer. Yet we've been saying the same thing for decades. The same stories have been told since confinement has been conceptualized. Incarceration isn't a solution, but a maturation. Continuing to rely on a department dedicated to managing statewide confinement only exacerbates the real underlying issues. This state continues to appropriate the people's tax dollars toward corrections, when we need to be reallocating government funds and resources toward reparations. A dismantling is in order. The more time we spend recording evidence for evidence sake, the more torture we all endure. It takes a collective action to move a seemingly immovable object. Context and perspective is crucial. In an actionable lawsuit I attempted to bring against the DOC during the COVID casualties, specifically within McDougal where people were succumbing to the virus, a Connecticut judge acknowledged my substantiated claims while dismissing them in their entirety on grounds that the Department of Corrections has sovereign immunity. I'm going to finish. Although she mentioned that she wished there was something she could do to put an end to our suffering. I too suffered this alongside Justin and was a co-plaintiff on this suit with him, which she could have. She chose to rule that DOC is its own governing body outside of the capacity with which she, a sitting judge, can intervene in favor of the well-being of Connecticut citizens. We remain trapped post-COVID inside of life-threatening conditions of confinement. This inaction of justice leads to perpetual casualties. This sovereign exists by people's authority. We have chosen to concede supreme power to the Department of Corrections. This mythology, even from a seated judge, has prison guards serving prison gods made up of commissioners and wardens. We are all responsible for allowing the DOC to operate as a state itself, governing itself despite this committee and the public's desire to serve our community's best interests. But of course, the DOC is not a supreme power, legally speaking. Nonetheless, we insist on allowing it to run as it is. Therefore, we choose to allow the killing to continue as it always has. We've been saying the same thing for decades. More time, more torture. Our state's future is in the hands of this committee and the decisions of the public. Meanwhile, our conditions of confinement remain life-threatening. Is anyone listening? I hope you guys were. I thank you for your time. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus.
Cyan Blackwell.
Yes.
Hi.
Thank you. My name is Cyan Blackwell, and I'm a student at Yale Law School. Today, I'm reading the testimonies of two men who could not be here because they are incarcerated. They ask that you seriously consider the growing crisis facing older adults who are aging in Connecticut's prisons. The first testimony is from Mark Bova, who is 64 years old and has been incarcerated for 32 years. He writes, I've been writing to our state representatives and senators to try and push parole for the elderly in prison. There's a lot of data that men who have been incarcerated for 25 years and are over 55 years old age out of crime. The recidivism rate of those who get out and reoffend is 43%, but for those over 55, it's less than 4%. Other states have begun to offer parole to their elderly population, and Connecticut should do so as well. The medical cost of incarceration goes up significantly as we age, yet the quality of care we receive is woefully inadequate to meet our needs. Most times we are placed in the infirmary and left to die, never receiving the care we should be getting for the medical issue we are suffering from. It is fiscally irresponsible and inhumane to continue to incarcerate those who, after spending decades in prison, cost the most to incarcerate, have turned their lives around, and pose no threat to the public. They deserve to be given a second chance. Decades in prison does not prevent crime, and never allowing someone to show they are corrected is a crime in itself. The second testimony is from Jonathan Carney, who has been incarcerated for over 24 years and is also working to bring attention to the crisis of elders in Connecticut prisons. He writes, the 1990s heralded tough on crime politics and the complete and utter focus on retribution within Connecticut's criminal justice system. A collateral consequence of those decisions is the current elder crisis unfolding within the Department of Correction. By focusing primarily upon retribution, sentences became significantly longer and the conditions in which they are served much harsher. Prisoners exposed to these factors age much quicker, suffer from more age-related illnesses, and have a shorter overall life expectancy compared to those in the general public. Retribution is effectively designed to erode and grind down a person bit by bit and piece by piece. Working as a janitor in a prison medical ward for close to 7 years, I have had a front row seat to the ravages of retributive policies. Just the other day, I watched an individual pack up all his personal belongings and stand in front of his window for hours, waiting for a bus to pick him up, a bus that will never come because he no longer knows where he is. In the book Harm in American Penology, Offenders, Victims, and Their Communities, the author Todd Clear argues that strictly retributive policies do not take account of one's capacity for change. But how could such change matter when the ravages of age and disease have robbed a person of their mind? Retribution at this point becomes torture. It is my sincere hope that the committee considers a mechanism to release older offenders who have spent decades in a retributive system. We need a solution that affords them the basic human dignity to meet their medical and senior care needs in the community, and not just the bare minimum standards protected by the 8th Amendment of our Constitution. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Holly Pedrera.
Good afternoon. How is everybody? Good afternoon to the members of Correction Advisory Committee. My name is Holly Pedrera, and I reside in Fairfield. I am here today as a volunteer reading testimony on behalf of individuals currently incarcerated within the Connecticut Department of Correction. Today, I'll be sharing 4 testimonies from men whose experiences reflect broader concerns within our correctional system. These are the voice of people who are voiceless and directly impacted by the policies and decisions discussed in rooms like this one. I ask that you listen not only to their words, but to the experiences behind them. The first is Jaquan Burton Sr. My name is Jaquan Burton Sr. I have been incarcerated since I was 19 years old. During that time, I have worked hard to grow, take responsibility for my actions, and become a better man. Recently, I decided it was time to start preparing for my release. One of the things I tried to do was open a bank account. I couldn't. That's when I asked myself, what if I were released today? The truth was, I wouldn't be ready. Not because I don't want to work, not because I don't want to change, but because I haven't been given the opportunity to prepare. Change doesn't begin at the prison gate. It begins the day someone decides they want a different life. I made that decision. I'm simply asking for the chance to prepare while I'm still here. Thank you. The next one is from Troy Kelly. My name is Troy Kelly, and I am currently incarcerated at Cybulski Correctional Institution. Before I came to prison, I was in a serious car accident. Since arriving at Cybulski, my left knee has been in pain every single day. I've asked for an MRI and a medical mattress. I've gone to sick call. Every time I hear the same words, you are on the list. The pain is still there every day. I filed a medical grievance because I didn't know what else to do. I know we're in prison, but we're still human. Thank you. The next is from Jamal Sumler. My name is Jamal Sumler. I believe incarcerated people should have the right to file grievances against staff and have those grievances reviewed by an independent outside entity, not solely by the Department of Correction. If a grievance alleges a violation of department's employee code of conduct, it should be investigated promptly and fairly. If incarcerated people are held accountable for our actions, staff should be held accountable for theirs. Thank you. And the last one is from Charles McClendon. My name is Charles McClendon. Since 2009, people incarcerated in level 4 facilities have raised the same concern with the Department of Correction. We've been promised that the television reception problem would be fixed. It still hasn't been. We pay about $240 for a 13-inch TV, which is way too much because of the concrete walls. Many of us cannot receive free over-the-air channels. Those televisions are supposed to pick up. If we try to improve the reception ourselves by placing antenna in the window, we can receive a disciplinary report. This isn't just about television reception. It's about promises that are made and never kept. We are people too. Thank you. This concludes the testimonies. Thank you for listening to the experiences shared today and for recognizing the importance of hearing directly from those impacted by our correctional system.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Janice Parker.
Is it on? Okay. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Janice Parker. I am a formerly incarcerated woman who fights for mammograms, buses to become a vendor for the Department of Corrections for Health and Wellness. I'm here to read a testimony on behalf of Hudell Gamble, who is currently incarcerated at Corrigan Radowski Correctional Facility. I've been incarcerated for nearly 20 years, and I've been a model inmate for most of the time. Until now, I never understood why so many incarcerated people said that the disciplinary system wasn't fair. Now that I'm living through it, I do myself. There is no real independent oversight of disciplinary hearings. Hearing officers review the work of their coworkers, and too often the outcome feels decided before hearing begin. DOC should not be reviewing DOC. My own case shows why. DOC accused me of possessing drugs. From the very beginning, I said the evidence would prove I was innocent. The evidence did. The Connecticut State Police submitted the evidence to the state laboratory. The laboratory found no drugs. I have the state police report, I have the laboratory report, I have the evidence, and it exists. Yet I'm still living with the consequences of those allegations. Although one of the disciplinary charges was dismissed on appeal, I still being affected by the same underlying allegations. Independent review isn't asking DOC if DOC was right. It's reviewing the evidence. There's another issue I asked this committee to address. Under DOC policy, if a prisoner has a positive urine test, they have the right to send the sample to a laboratory for confirming testing. I've used that process myself and have been exonerated because of it. But if DOC accuses someone of possessing drugs, a charge that can affect housing classification and parole, there is no comparable right to confirming testing. That makes no sense. The confirmation testing system already exists. Just apply it to the alleged drug possession the same way it already applied to the urine samples. If the answer is it's not in the rules, then change the rules. That's what oversight is supposed to do. People should not continue to live with the consequences of the allegations that cannot withstand independent review. I got the paperwork, I got the evidence. Now the question is whether this committee is willing to follow it. Thank you. I also want to add a few comments in the visitation schedule on the phone. I've been calling about that for over a year, and it's not correct. It only takes 5 minutes. People, loved ones, everybody is not computer friendly. People call, the schedule is wrong, you arrive, you can't see your loved ones. That needs to be fixed. Also, expired food. Expired food at in Suffield is another issue. And can we renew the contract with the mammogram bus? It expired, and we need that. Men need it also, just as well as women. When I was there, it took them 7 months to see me after they saw our image on my chest. So I strongly urge the committee to do that. And my final say, what I always say to everyone, when I was an inmate, I used to tell the COs, I live in this environment, and so do you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tracy Shoemaker. I think was remote. Elaine Klechley. Is that someone here? Okay. Ebony Knox. That's a name I've seen on.
Yes, I'm here.
Yep. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm the wife of Ricky Knox, who is a resident at Osborne. His letter reads as follows. My name is Ricky Knox. I am currently incarcerated at Osborne, not only on my own behalf, but also on behalf of many other men who live here each day. We understand that we have been sentenced to serve our time, repay our debt to society. We are not asking for special treatment, entitlement, or luxury. We are simply asking to be treated with basic human dignity, respect, and humane conditions that every person deserves. Over the past several months, I have witnessed, personally experienced serious issues that continue to affect the health, safety, well-being of incarcerated population at Osborne. One of the most significant concerns is the quality of the drinking water. Numerous inmates have complained that the water is discolored, foul tasting, and appeared unsafe. Many fear for their health. There has been reported serious illness that inmates believe may be associated with the water supply. Despite repeatedly complaints, many feel these concerns have not been adequately investigated or addressed. Overcrowding has also been a serious safety issue. Cells originally designed for one person now routinely house 2 inmates, created cramped living conditions, increasingly tension between cellmates, reducing sanitation, and placing additional strain on the facility infrastructure. There are also ongoing concerns regarding fire safety. Housing units with double inmates repeating lack of fire sprinklers protections, while limited electrical outlets are required to support the needs of 2 inmates. Living conditions in some areas contains disordered inmates have reportedly have been confined in shower areas contaminated with human waste, foul odors, mold, mildew, insects. Some individuals have alleged being required to remain in those unsanitary conditions for extended periods and have been served meals there. No human being should be subject to conditions that strips away basic dignity. The facility also lacks infinite calming areas, recreation opportunities expected of a level 3. Many rooms access is limited. Access is minimal. Opportunities for programming are insufficient and periods are off-putting because inmates remain locked in their cells for extended periods before being released into the rec yard. Is non-existent in certain restrooms. Facilities lack in common areas, leaving inmates exposed while using the toilet. This concerns embarrassment, discomfort, concerns of regarding personal dignity, safety, compliance with the standards of PREA. Many inmates have expressed concerns that filing grievances or reporting legitimate issues results in retaliation rather than solutions. Complaints are often dismissed without meaningful investigation, discouraging inmates from utilizing the grievance process. This is intended to preserve their rights and promote institutional accountability. Inconsistent sanitary are applied differences on the individual involving such. That's it.
You can finish
Okay,
up.
well, I'm going. Osborne. Okay, many inmates further believe that Osborne Correctional Institution is being operated under restrict, more consistent with a higher facility, despite its level 3 confinements. Policies and practice are often appear unnecessarily restricted and consistent with the institution design security levels. The visiting process has likewise become a significant source of frustration for many families. Rules are applied inconsistently, communication often unclear and unnecessary. Restrictions create additional hardships for loved ones who are simply attempted to maintain a meaningful family relationships. The men that house at Osborne understands that incarcerated itself is the punishment imposed by the courts. However, the loss of liberty should not include the loss of basic human dignity, access to safe drinking water, living conditions, responsible recreation, policies are fair or inconsistent treatment. Correctional institutions shall promote accountability, rehab, and safety, not conditions that unnecessarily endanger disgrading the people in their custody. We respectfully request that concerns be thoroughly investigated throughout the independent review. And that's all that he said. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the final person who signed up was Marisol Garcia. I don't see her though. Yeah. I don't see her online. So thank you everyone who has provided testimony. Tracy Shoemaker, sorry.
I'm here.
Yeah, if you'd like to speak.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the committee. My name is Tracy Shoemaker, and I spent more than 18 years incarcerated in Connecticut. I know what it means to lose your freedom. I know what it feels like to become a number, a DOC identification number, instead of being seen as a person with a name, a family, a history, and a future. But I also know what incarceration does not have to, excuse me, but I also know that incarceration does not have to mean the end of someone's humanity. Losing your freedom should be the punishment. Losing your humanity should never be. This is what I want this community to think about today. When we talk about corrections, we have to talk about more than confinement. We have to talk about education, medical care, rehabilitation, and human dignity. Education changed my life. While incarcerated, I had the opportunity to pursue education and develop skills that gave me a completely different version of my future. Education gave me purpose. It taught me that I was more than the worst decision I ever made. Every incarcerated person should have the access to meaningful education and opportunities to learn, not as a reward, not because they are lucky enough to be in the right facility, but because education makes our community safer when people eventually return home. I also want to talk about medical care. When the state takes someone's freedom, it takes responsibility for that person's basic well-being. That means when someone gets sick, they should be treated. When somebody's in pain, they should be heard. When a woman is pregnant, she should receive appropriate prenatal health care. When a woman gives birth, she should receive the dignity and medical attention that any human being deserves. We should never hear reports of a woman giving birth in a toilet and simply move on. We should never accept a system where people have to fight to be taken serious about their health. And this is especially important for women. Women need access to basic hygiene products, medical care, menstrual products, and other necessities without having to beg for them. I'm also aware of currently incarcerated women who reported sexual assault and was transferred out of state. I mention that because we need to talk about whether the system is addressing problems or simply moving people away from them. I just got a few more sentences, but ultimately this is a bigger than one incident. It's about how we treat people who are in custody. We are not numbers, we are people. We are mothers, fathers, children's grandchildren, families waiting for them. We have talents, potential, and the ability to change. I know that because I changed. I came home after more than 18 years, and today I use my experience to advocate for others. Correction should not simply prepare people to survive prison. Correction should be preparing people to successfully live when they come home. So I'm asking the committee to look at the system through the eyes of people living inside it. Ask them about their education, medical care, whether they feel respected, whether they feel heard. Ask them whether they are treated like human beings or simply like numbers. Because if you want safer communities, we have to invest in people, not just control them. Give them education, the appropriate medical care, the opportunity to change, and most importantly, give them their humanity, because a sentence can take away someone's freedom, but it should never take away their worth. Losing your freedom should be the punishment. Losing your humanity should never be. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
So I think that does conclude our public comment. We thank all of you for coming.
Yeah, I just want to say thank everybody for coming. When I leave these hearings, I feel so reinvigorated in the work we have to do. Going into this office and going into these prisons week after week, it's not easy, and we're kind of in a silo in the office. But when I come here and I hear all these stories and know the people that are dependent on the work that we do, it reinvigorates me. So thank you all for coming out and sharing your stories. Thank you so much.
For those on the committee, I think we're going to have to adjourn and not do our quarterly meetings. So if we can maybe entertain a motion to move that meeting.
Seconded.
Okay. All those in favor? I see Ben and Andrew on.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
So we will reconvene for our to continue the quarterly meeting, and we'll adjourn the semi-annual hearing. Thank you. It was good.
Do we have to adjourn our this other one?
I said we did. I don't think we had to vote on.
Oh yeah, so we're good. Yeah. All right.
Thanks for sticking it out.